All right, at this time we'll call the meeting to order and welcome everybody here tonight in the new year, I guess. First time together in the new year. So good to see the whole board here, as well as those of you who've come from the public. Tonight we're going to open with a word of prayer from John Schwalm.
Well, thank you, Jim. Can we bow our heads, please? Our dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you. We have this opportunity that we can be here together and talk about our township, and we just pray for wisdom and guidance and for your blessing. Thank you for all you do for us. We pray for the change in our administrations nationally, and we thank you for President Trump serving so well, and we pray that you'll be with him and help him through these changes in his life, and we appreciate his love for our country. And we also pray for our new President Biden. Pray that you'll bless him and give him wisdom and bless his administration to make our nation a better nation. Thank you for all you do for us, Lord. We also want to thank you for Georgetown Township and the wonderful people that work here. And here we're going through a pandemic, and their attitude is fantastic. And thank you for them and our first responders who are working in this terrible cold and doing such a good job. Thank you, Lord, for this opportunity. We ask this in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. John, if you could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. All right. Well, Mr. Clerk, I want to acknowledge who's present for the record. All right. Everybody's here? Everybody is here. Glad for that. Okay. So that's item 5 if you're following along out there that we're on right now, the approval of the agenda. So is there a motion from the board to approve tonight's agenda? So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any changes, any additions?
I would like to remove one item from the consent agenda.
All right. Which item is that?
Bills.
All right. Item 9.
I believe so, yes.
2, yep. 9-2. We will move that. You know, why don't we just make it item 9B, and we'll just pick right up with that after our consent agenda before moving into the rest of what we have. Is that all right? Objection? Okay. I've got a change. I see our Representative Luke Mearman here tonight. I imagine he wants to give us an update from Lansing. Am I correct in that, Luke? While we normally get this on there in advance for you guys, seeing him here tonight, I'd like to add him, if we could, to the agenda to bring us an update. So, anyone have any issue with that? If not, and I guess out of courtesy and for your time, we'll put you at 9C. All right? Okay. Any other changes?
I'd like to add an agenda item to discuss virtual public participation in future meetings.
All right. And why don't we, since that seems to be in the vein of maybe the discussion among the board toward the end, is that all right, Becky, to put that perhaps just before number 14?
Can we put it before number 13, please?
Sure. With the public comment period? Sure.
Yes.
So 12B, if we can call it that. Now, I know these additions to the agenda require an amendment to our motion that's on the floor. I'll make a consolidated amendment unless there's others that wish to add anything. Okay, hearing none, I'd like to move to amend the motion that's before you to approve the agenda to now add the items that have been mentioned. Of course, Catherine by right has removed one item to make it 9B. 9C, I'm suggesting, would be a report from our state representative. And then 12B would be a discussion among the board about virtual participation. Is there a second?
Second.
And it is seconded. Any discussion? Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, that's passed. Now, would the amendment having been approved and the amended agenda before you. All in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right. The agenda is now
Before
approved
you move
as
on,
amended.
I just remind you that I am really hard of hearing, and
Yep.
you're kind of going fast again. So I haven't missed anything so far, but it's been pretty hard once I start reading to follow along with things. It's going to be a little challenging for me.
All right. Looking to the chief. Oh, there he is in the back. Chief Hemming, would you now come forward and address us as part of your presentation under item 6 of the agenda this evening? We thank you for coming.
What I'm going to do tonight is run a short history of what I call the Georgetown Fire Department. So I got a few slides I'll show you. I'll ad-lib along the way, and I'll open it up for questions or comments when I'm done. So,
If I may, for the benefit of the public, we've been asking different leaders within the township to address our board monthly at the beginning of this term. Some of us just to learn things that maybe we should have known by now, and others of which are new and maybe haven't heard some of what the chief and others are going to present. So we appreciate you taking your turn tonight.
thank you. First slide there, we've got 2 full-time staff along with myself. First picture here is Captain Matt DeWitt. He's on Station 1 on 14th and 44th. He's a full fire inspector, and then he oversees our EMS program. Second gentleman is Craig Skolma. He's a firefighter also at Station 1. He's in charge of all the department maintenance on the apparatus, fire stations, and all the properties. That is Station 1, as I mentioned, at 44th and 14th. We currently have 3 fire stations. Second one is on Church Street, right across from the old Hot and Now, if you know where that was. That's been there of the 3 stations the longest. And then Station 3, sounds a little bad there, but on 36th Avenue south of Baldwin. 2020 statistics were up this year. 753 incidents, 150 related fire incidents. That's any type of fire, vehicle fire, car fire, anything pertaining to fire. Rescue and EMS, that is where you'll see the spike in the numbers, and that is due to, obviously, the COVID responses we ran and a lot of sickness out there, but that usually isn't that high. Hazardous condition, that is wires down, spill cleanups, carbon monoxide alarms, and a few other things. Unauthorized burning, U-burns is 98, or legal brush fires incorporates into that. False alarms is 120 with the alarmed buildings in the township, and this is pretty much department-wide wherever you go. Their big concern is false alarms. Just a couple pics of what we do. Obviously, that's a residential fire that we had in the past. That was a garage fire over west of Hudsonville. And then vehicle extrications. Each one of our front end line engines has an extrication tools on it. As I mentioned before, Station 2. On Church Street, they have 2 sets. They got a gas operated, and they also have a set of battery operated tools that work very nice. Right now, that is one of our frontline engines, 1,500 gallons per minute. That is one of the new ones we just took delivery of here a couple months ago. And that is at Station 1 on 44th. And there's a second one that goes along with it. One's at Station 1 and one's at Station 3. Now, the difference in the cabs of today for what they used to be, there's 6 seats in here. In each seat, you can see a SCBA, or a self-contained breathing apparatus, a harness. That's where the tank goes on that the firefighters put on to go into a smoky environment and be able to breathe in that environment. Right here, obviously all the tools that they need for firefighting are kept right in the cab of the truck. Flashlights, thermal imaging camera. There's axes, pike poles, Halligan bars, all on the back here. So the trucks have obviously came along since I got on many years ago. Back then it was more of these two-man cabs, the open cabs, even hop a ride on the back tailboard, which we can't do anymore. So big thing, it's the safety of our personnel, that they're all seated and they're all belted in. All of our frontline engines and the backup engines we have all have a top mount pump. What that means is right in here, that's a walkway that's right behind the cab, that the equipment operator can stand up there and he's got a visual pretty much all the way around the truck. Each one of these is designated to a different outlet on the truck. Right here, as you see, there's all what we call our pre-connect lines. There's two of them here. There's more of them right behind the pump panel, and these type of apparatus we've been having around probably since our early 80s as we went to top mount. Again, all the frontline engines are equipped with foam. Foam applications are licensed by the state as an EMS vehicle. Each has extrication equipment, cribbing, medical equipment, portable radios, and thermal imaging cameras. This here is our 100-foot platform that's at Station 1 on 44th Street. This was bought years ago. As you see on the ladder there, it basically says Georgetown and Jamestown. It was a dual effort where Georgetown and Jamestown funded the money for the unit. And this, I think, is 2000, I believe. So it's a very nice unit, but a little bit more in the program. We'll talk about the time span on this truck. This is our squad 832 at Station 2 on Church Street. This is what we call our support vehicle. This has a cascade system where we can fill our air on scene. Has a lot of extrication. The tools, a battery operated set I mentioned earlier are on here. We have high pressure airbags, low pressure airbags, and this pretty much runs every traffic pin in the township. This is how we fill that unit. We got a cascade system and a compressor at Station 1 that we can also use to fill the two bottles on the platform. So in the event we use it, we run the truck down there and basically fill the system from Station 1. As I mentioned, thermal imaging cameras. Each one of our apparatus has a camera on board. And for those that don't know, it obviously picks up heat. Heat inside of a wall, heat in the ceiling, heat on a light ballast. Anywhere where the generation of heat is increased. We still rely on the old-fashioned touch it with your hand just to make sure. So this sometimes can be failing, so we still rely on the old-fashioned measures as well. Carbon monoxide, as I mentioned, we run a fair amount of those. And what it ends up being pretty much most of the time is the homeowner not changing the battery or the detectors beyond its lifespan of use. So, one way to go in there and verify there's no CO, and like I say, most of the times it comes back zero. Currently, we've got a full-time fire chief, a deputy chief, 3 captains per station, 1 lieutenant per station, 18 firefighters per station, and 3 full-time positions. Currently, our roster is right around 56 personnel. Mutual and automatic aid. What mutual or automatic aid is either Georgetown helping a neighbor or a neighbor helping us. Mutual aid given by Georgetown was 30. Mutual aid or auto aid given to Georgetown was 26. It usually over a year evens itself out pretty close. In the past year, we've had no serious deaths or no serious injuries or no deaths within the department, so that's one thing to be thankful for. This is a cone trailer at Station 1. This was, really it's owned by the water department. They needed a place to store it, so we stored it in the station and we put it to use in our busier areas, 196, Baldwin Street, this type's just to help notify the motorists that we're out there. Works real well out on the freeways. Fire prevention, we usually go into all the schools and we conduct classes during Fire Prevention Week. That's the first full week in October. Obviously, in 2020, we were unable to do that because of COVID. So hopefully this year in 2021, everything will lighten up a little bit, that we can get back doing that. When we do go in the schools, there's years that we see 1,500 to 2,000 kids. So between the Hudsonville and Jenison school districts, we get a lot of attention out of those facilities. Also, we got our annual fire department open house, which we have at Station 1. That's the right around the first week of October, too, for fire prevention. As was fire prevention last year, we didn't have that either, just because of COVID. Training, several topics that we are mandated to do each year is incident command, pumping operations, driver's training, extrication, hose testing, aerial operations, live fire evolutions, which is not utilizing live fire, it's utilizing fake smoke, ropes and knots, and hazardous materials refresher. Having Pete's Auto Parts in the backyard helps us out real well. That was one training we conducted here a year or two ago. And we set up scenarios of, obviously a bus accident, along with a vehicle accident. Several mannequins we placed around the vehicle, and then also we used firefighters' kids as students on the bus. It was an excellent training that we put there. So, yeah, just keep going until the last one's done. Once in a while, we get Aeromet out here. Being so close to Spectrum or Metro, it's got to be an extended pin-in for us to request Aeromet. A lot of the outer line areas to the west, they use them more frequent than what we do, but every once in a while they will be requested to come out here. Water supply. We have an excellent water supply, and that was noted here a little bit in the program when I talk about ISO, but our numbering and our water pressures in ISO did very well. Hose testing, this is another NFPA that we have to do every year. This hose here is what we call a 5-inch supply hose, and that was off one truck. We carry about a mile of hose on that one truck, so and that will lead into our hose relay. Communications. All of our personnel have a pager, minute or 5-pager on their belt, and dispatch can pretty much find them anywhere in Ottawa County or even Kent County. So years ago, we rely on bread boxes and then sirens at the station, but seeing we switched to all the pagers, eliminated the sirens and everything else. So, 800 megahertz in 2020, Ottawa County Central Dispatch implemented and funded a $13 million radio project. In doing so, 11 radio towers were added in Ottawa County. One of those towers is at the 44th Street station. As you see riding by, you see that tower there. That is one of the 11 towers. And basically, all portable and mobile radios will be upgraded later on this year in order to accompany Kent County and Muskegon County to get into 800 as well. Accountability, Active 911, this is a program that we use. on every incident. What you see here is all different buttons that when an alarm goes out for a station or stations, each member can click on where he's going. If he's going to station 1, station 2, station 3, or where he's going, unavailable, just gives us an avenue to track in a part-paid department who's coming and who's not. Otherwise, without that, we have no idea how many are going to be there. And if you see there, you got 11 responses and 30 watching. So basically, you click on the program in your phone, and I can pick out any name that's coming to the call. So it's a benefit to having that program. Every year we run through annual DOT inspections on all the apparatus, and we're mandated to do that. And we continue periodically having breakdowns, which is normal, but and that's the communications tower that I referred to at Station 1. Downstairs in the basement of the building here, we have an Emergency Operations Center, or EOC. This room here is if we get into a storm situation where we got to help dispatch calls because they're overwhelmed. We've got 4 to 8 radios, mobile radios downstairs. Being downstairs in this building is like being in a bunker. No problems with tornadoes or anything like that, but we don't use it often, but when we do need it, it's very handy. Georgetown has 12 warning sirens spaced all through the township. Testing is November through March, and it's the first Friday of every month, so it won't be long, and they'll be going through the 2021 siren test. This is extrication equipment on the engine, frontline engine at Station 2. And then also here's the battery set operated tools that I had referred to earlier. Here is the Lucas device that the board approved here a couple weeks to a month ago. We did receive them. They are on the frontline squads at each station. Haven't used them yet, so hopefully it stays that way that we don't have to use them. So. And this is the 2019 medical vehicle that was put into service at Station 1. That replaces the old, not the old Suburban, but the Suburban that I jumped into to sell my old one. So. iPads, one upgrade we made in 6 of the vehicles. We put iPads up in the cabs. Obviously, that helps with the active 911 program. It's got mapping in it that they can set that if they're going to an alarm. A lot of our programs are downloaded into the iPad. So far they've worked very good. Our equipment checks, we can download all that on there, so they're very helpful. What is the future of the Georgetown Fire Department? As I mentioned, the aerial platform is on its 20th year, and it's a cycle of 25 years. So nothing we got to worry about today or tomorrow, but just the time frame will be here before you know it. And I mention this every time I do a report is we should consider a 4th station in the northwest of the township should development continue at its current pace. I've always said this isn't something we have to do tomorrow, next week, next month, or next year, but just know that this could be a possibility if the construction continues at its current pace. As I mentioned earlier, we had an ISO evaluation here in 2019, which carried over into 2020. And for those that don't know, ISO evaluates fire departments in the United States every 5 years. Used to be every 10 years. A final rating or a grade affects the insurance premiums on residential and commercial properties. The rating schedule is simple, 1 through 10. If you get a 1, that's perfect. If you get a 10, that's not so good. We started out at a 4, and we did get our evaluation back, and we missed going to a 3 by 3/4 of a point. So we are in contact with ISO now that we've got the 2 engines on the road and some other, the iPads and this type thing, if we can have them come back in, that we can reevaluate some things just to see if we can get to that 3. Parts of ISO is obviously reporting telecommunications dispatch, and that is at Ottawa County Central. Our engine companies, how many you have, reserve pumpers, what our pumping capacity is, ladder companies, reserve ladder trucks, and then our personnel. Training is a big one within ISO. Water supply, the supply system, hydrant size, the inspection and testing of the hydrants. In 2020, the last step in the process, seeing we're about 80 to 90% hydranted, they wanted us to identify the reserve water source that we have. And that referred back to that hose truck I was telling you about that had a mile of hose on it. So basically they said, we would like you to do a hose relay. And it's a pass or fail. It isn't, we'll give you this much for it or that much. It's either a yes or a no that you made it. So what we had to do is we had to lay a mile of hose. And we had to first start out with 826, which is on top there. He had to be sitting in a spot a mile away from the hydrant, pumping water through a 2.5-inch line and maintain it until that water line is charged. So as you see there, tankers from London and Allendale assisted us, where this whole thing is timed. That you can't, well, we're going to go now, we're going, no, it's timed. So once Blendon and Allendale pulled in, they started feeding 826 with water. And all they got to supply is a 2.5-inch line. So basically, these are the apparatus that we were mandated to use. Most of them you see are ours, but see in the area they were simulating was out towards Allendale, so that's why Allendale and Blendon had to help us. So here's the whole relay we had to do. Right here is the hydrant at 10th and Taylor down by the airport. The hose truck had to start here, and when they gave the go-ahead, he had to lay a line all the way up over to here. And then each one of these at a given time, 823, 122, at a given time had to jump into the place by the coupling, break it down, hook one into the suction side, one into the discharge side, and begin to flow water. This had to be done in 15 minutes. ISO didn't think we'd do it, and we made it with 30 seconds to spare. So like I said, it was a pass or fail. So the guys pulled that off. We also have a fire department dive team. I think we got 12 divers. That's one of our, we got 2 boats. One's inflatable, and then we got another one that's a jet boat. The inflatable boat we utilize more for the inland bodies of water, with the jet boat being a little heavy. We use it for more Grand River stuff, or one of our larger ponds or lakes that has a boat launch where we can access it. So,
is that guy fishing, Chief?
Pardon?
Is that guy fishing?
Fishing?
Was he fishing? Looked like he told me.
So, let's see, we got 12 divers, 10 support staff. We do surface and subsurface. Our communications, our face masks there, the divers can go underwater and they can talk to the boat. So it's a very sophisticated system for a diver to be down 20 to 30 feet and he's talking to the boat like I'm talking to you right here. So we train on ice and swift water. Georgetown has 90 bodies of water, 10 allow personal watercraft, and then 8.5 miles of Grand River winds through Georgetown Township. There are 2 organized dive teams in Ottawa County, obviously the Georgetown dive team, and then we assist the Ottawa County Sheriff's Office periodically as well. That is our pickup at Station 2 and then the dive trailer. This is our little ATV that helps haul the motor, as you see on the back, for the boat. And then it also assists in carrying the dive tanks, weights, everything down to the shoreline. A lot easier to transport them that way than have personnel do it. Future concern for Georgetown Fire, and this is everybody's concern that operates a paid on-call department, is recruiting and retaining daytime 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday personnel. It's a struggle not only in Michigan, it's a struggle nationwide that there's a problem trying to retain personnel during the week when a lot of folks are at work. Again, thank you. Thank you for the support. And I'll answer any questions or take any comments you might have.
I have a question for you. I'm curious what we've raised. We have 4 kids. 3 of them are older, so they are out of that age range. But I don't recall our kids ever doing a fire prevention, whatever you mentioned, class that you mentioned. That sounds very interesting. How long, when you have those, how each class goes and they spend how long with you there? Oh, do you do it? Okay, so you're at the school.
The first slide was at the schools. We would visit all the Hudsonville Jenison schools in Georgetown.
You just bring one of the fire trucks with you.
We bring the fire truck, we bring materials, we do displays for them.
Okay.
Stop, drop and roll, this type thing. We're an FCBA with full turnouts on, so they're affiliated. What that is, that they're not scared should they see that.
Did I hear you? Do you not do anything where any students come to a firehouse then?
The first Thursday in October, you can mention.
Yeah.
The first Thursday in October, they do an open house for anyone.
So we do a department open house.
Okay.
Where the public can come on down and see who we are and what we have, and have various stations set up and this type thing.
Okay, cool.
My little boys love to do that, sit in the ambulance and sit on the fire truck and all of those pieces. That's the open house is such a hit at our house.
Chief, I got some questions. What is the closest station to our northwest quadrant? Would that be Blendon right now? Or would it be our 36th Street station?
Between Blendon and Allendale.
Okay.
No.
They're closer than our 36th Street station would be.
Basically our own station is the closest there.
Okay, okay.
Up at the college, if we get a incident up there, Allendale is on auto 8 up there with us. And just where we're coming from to where they're coming from, they usually beat us in there. And Station 3 or 36 isn't that far behind, but they got a straight shot down 45 and they can get in there first.
What's our average time to get to the northwest quadrant as compared to other areas that you feel are better covered?
I think from the time of dispatch until the time we can get up to the college is probably 6.5 minutes.
What does it take to be considered a body of water? You said we have 90 bodies of water.
Some are the smaller ponds.
Yeah.
Some are obviously Georgetown shores. Hidden Lakes is another one that's not a big lake, but it's big enough where you could put a boat on it if you had to.
So when I went through my ice playing hockey earlier this week to my chest, you know my pond, right? You've probably done an aerial
Yeah.
You can come and get me out. Okay.
Okay.
Good. It happens. Any more? We were having trouble with dumpster fire or trash container fires the year before last, and we were trying to get the word out. Don't throw your ashes in there and so on. And what? Because it was burning down houses, right? They're putting them back in the garage. And
basically, yeah. A few years ago, I had to go on TV8 just to do a story, only because that one, in a short time, we had 10 of them, where folks would have a campfire out back, and a day or so later would go out and empty the campfire, take it in the garage, and throw it in the trash can. Well, those ashes hold heat for up to a week, and that one year we had 10 house fires, and I mean they're gone by the time we get there. And
did we have any this past year?
Funny thing, 2 weeks ago we had one.
We did. Okay.
But the homeowner was going to leave. He went in the garage and saw it and put it out. Same thing. He emptied his trash can in the garage and said, told us that he had the fire the day before, but he stuck his hand in the pail and thought it was out. Obviously it wasn't out. But. So no, he caught that one just in time.
These next questions are more out of curiosity. Is there a feature on any of your apparatus, your engines, et cetera, that you've never gotten to use that you really wish, not that you wish harm on anybody, but you really wanted to put into practice and haven't gotten a chance to do so yet?
You know, if you look at the equipment on each apparatus or the engines, I think every piece of equipment that's on there has been used once or twice. It's not that you open the compartment and all this axe is just like brand new.
Yeah, no. Okay. Do you have any planned burns coming up? We were talking about kids. My kids like to watch that. Right
now, we do not have any houses that we've been called on, but that kind of goes up and down. So. All
right. Those are my questions. I would just say to the board, if you've not been to the top of the tall ladder, they will allow you to have that experience. And if you don't like heights, you don't want to do it, but it is a thrill. Anyone else?
I have a question. When it comes to training, is that a continuous training, like every year? More training for the fire department? I mean, what does that involve? You say you got to have to get paid staff during the week. So if a guy wants to volunteer, how many hours are you looking at training to become a volunteer and continue in ed and that kind of thing?
If I get a phone call tomorrow or an individual stop in the office and wants to get on Georgetown Fire or any other fire, that is, if we would put them on, the first thing they do, they would go to what we host here in Ottawa County, and that's a fire academy. Once they get done with the academy, they usually start in January, first week in January, and they're wrapped up in June. And when they take the test, do all their practical, and they pass, they are certified by the state of Michigan as firefighter 1 and 2. And then from there, in our department, in the wintertime, we do more of our EMS training just because of the weather. And then in the spring, summer, and fall is when we do a lot of our fire training outside. As the supervisor said, it's nice to get old houses periodically that we can open the roofs up and breach the inside walls and simulate trap personnel, this type thing. But as I say, right now we don't have anything like that. But it's a constant training effort.
Dan, it's a pleasure to be on the service committee, and you invite us to come to your Christmas parties. The camaraderie is incredible. It's like a family, and I would assume that's one of the reasons why we retain people for so long, and that you have 56 that are working there. But they're gentlemen. Their wives are thrilled that they're participating, although it pulls them away. But you can feel it, and they're gentlemen and ladies. I think you have a few women that are serving.
Right now we don't have any females.
Okay.
But right now we don't have any. But just what John said about the dinner that we host. every year we put that on, not for our fire personnel, but it's for their spouses, for what they have to deal with throughout the year. The times they have family parties, commitments, and all of a sudden the pager goes off, the guys are on the fire call and leave the wife and the kids to do their thing. So, again, it's more or less for the significant other, just a way of saying thank you.
Anyone else? No? Chief, how many years have you been with us?
Too long.
Didn't hear that.
Starting February 1, I start my 16th year full time, and then April 27, I start my 45th year.
Wow. Well, thank you. And I know the camaraderie he's talking about flows down from the leadership above. And I say this in a very complimentary fashion. You just look like a fire chief. If I had a picture, it would look like you. So, yes.
You are the best on TV. When they interview, you represent us very well.
Oh, and just the last comment. I communicate quite a bit with the area fire departments, the area fire chiefs, and I got to be honest, they're envious of what we do. If we get a call during the day or night, we try to put 6 people on our trucks. That's just gives you 6 guys when you pull up to the scene. Some of these departments, they say, I don't know how you do that, but we cannot do that. We leave with 2, 3, but to say we're not envied throughout Ottawa County, we are. And that's attributed to the board.
I must not understand that rating system because it seems like we'd be a 1 and not a 4.
So we'll see what we can do if we can bring it down. But if we would secure a 3, we'd be ecstatic. Let's just put it that way. That a paid department gets down to a 3.
All right, got a goal. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. All right, we're now to item 7 on our agenda tonight, communication, letters, and reports which have been received by the board for information. One of those, just to point out, that Sprint letter was addressed to the wrong recipient here as we sold that particular lease a year or 2 ago. All right, item all the way to number 8, excuse me. A public comment period for those who come tonight who wish to speak to any item on the agenda. If you don't have the agenda, it's something you can pull up on your cell phone, and certainly we publish it in advance of our meetings. You can look it up online and even print it off and bring it with you or call it up, as I say, in your cell phone here. So is there anyone who would wish to speak to those items which remain this evening? All right, seeing none. Go on to item number 9, our consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended earlier in this meeting?
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Now we come to item 9B, which are the bills that have been provided to you, utility bills, Visa bills, other bills. And I'm going to look in Catherine's direction. This is the item that we've removed from our consent agenda tonight.
It's amazing how many of these pieces of paper were all on the item number 7, just acknowledging them. I guess just for clarification, one of my initial questions had been about a Varnum bill, a law firm bill. It said it was November 2020. It was $2,800. My initial understanding is that was just in the letter that we had, for drafting the letter that we had reviewed at the, I want to say last meeting, where we were talking about was it 1300 Maplewood property? And Treasurer Superintendent, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that is only part of that bill, that that $2,800 was also to draft the, am I saying this wrong? I'm not sure who would have the best answer here.
Probably Dan would be able to clarify what's...
I didn't look at the specific bill. I know you asked for it today. I didn't know if you looked at it, but Varnum handles the property agreement and the amendment that we did pass through, and all the closing documents and the review of all the closing documents on the closing of all property. So that was the closing of the 1300 Maplewood. We finally completed that closing. So I'm not sure the bill you're mentioning, what that covers, if it's the initial drafting of the agreement or the amendment from the timetable, but I have to actually look at the bill. But
Do you happen to know roughly for the drafting of the documents related to that property, whatever Varnum would have charged? Are you saying there could be other bills issued in that $2,800 for that same transaction?
There could be other bills related to that same transaction, yes. I haven't done the research. That's why we kind of like to have those questions ahead of time to us so we can get you those bills and show them to you. So, but yes, there could be other bills.
Okay. Well, yeah, I did get a copy of one of them, I think. So I just wanted to make sure I was understanding that right. So,
okay.
But that, as far as you're aware, $2,800 isn't for the one letter that we reviewed at the last meeting.
Correct.
Okay, that was my concern because I, for some reason, was under the impression that that's what that was for. I'm wondering. I guess I should ask. I didn't even think there could perhaps be a policy on this until just now. It occurred to me because one of my other questions that I had was related to something it turns out we have a policy for, and I'm glad that you sent that over to me. But one of my other questions, I see a lot of items that are uniforms, which I understand. The question I have is when we see entries that say something like just general boots or work clothes, and my understanding is that for items that are not a uniform, certain employees get, I don't know if you want to call it a stipend.
They get an allowance they can spend for clothing per year. We used to provide all the employees uniforms, and we had a uniform service. And then we got rid of that service. As part of that, eliminating the service, we allowed the employees to purchase up to a certain amount. And if they go above that amount, then they pay for that each year. So you often see them buy out their allowance near the end of the year. So they're required to have, certain ones are required to have the steel-toed boots and different items. So we do cover that cost up to that allowance amount.
Do we have that in a policy then somewhere, or is that just something that just happens when we switched over from the service?
I don't know that it's a board policy, but we do have that when we switched over from the service. I'm not sure if it's part of the personnel policy or listing the amount or not, but I'd have to look into that.
Is it more than one department?
It's basically, yes. It's our public works and our parks, both. So.
Okay. And I guess I didn't want to necessarily put it as an item on the agenda now, a specific item to discuss, but I want to plant the seed and then ask for feedback. One of the questions that I had was with regard to some of the, I don't know if you want to call it catering or some food and beverages that are provided to employees, and I don't know, is it just employees? I'm assuming it's just employees.
Primarily, yes.
So I know what my perspective is or my thought on it is, but Dan shared with me that there's a policy that was established, 11 years ago now, that I wasn't aware of. And I guess so I just want to plant the seed that if I can get feedback from any of you that have an opinion either way about if that's something that we intentionally would like to see going forward, where we're, I guess to put it bluntly, I think it's an inappropriate use of tax dollars to pay for food for our employees, but I'm open to hearing what the other side to that is. So again, I didn't want to necessarily make that a whole big agenda item where there's an action item being requested, but I would appreciate some thought or feedback because depending on what that looks like, maybe it is something to have, I don't know if that'd be services or.
So I have a feedback point and a thought would be to refer that if you'd like to the Finance Committee.
Finance.
Sure. We can talk about de minimis spending on that particular policy and that particular item. We can do that if you'd like to have us take that up in Finance. We can talk about that. And then, of course, if anything were to change, it would come before the board. I guess my second thought is just to clarify, just for anyone who's listening and maybe doesn't know, we don't feed our employees. If you get that in general impression, in other words, what she's referring to is, either the annual Christmas party or when we might feed the election workers, that kind of thing. So, yeah, we can look at that.
Okay.
Would you like that?
I guess at this point I wasn't even suggesting it had to even go to that step. I was just kind of hoping to, hear what the other side to that would be, other than it's just how we do it. I mean, not that, I don't mean to say that was a bad response, Dan. I appreciate the response you gave me. I'm open to that there's another side to it that I'm just not considering the perspective of. So, before I actually requested any kind of action item on a committee agenda or our agenda or anything, I guess I was just hoping for some feedback on that.
Okay. It wouldn't be any trouble for us to take it up in committee. I mean, I wouldn't see it as we don't have so long an agenda at our next meeting that we can't discuss that as well.
And do you know what, off the top of your head, when the next meeting is? Then?
For Finance, it'll be next week, Monday.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 8:15 a.m.
Is it too late to add it to then?
Dan, it went out today?
Too late? It's
okay.
too late, but you can bring it up during discussion. It's just too late to be on the agenda.
Well, it's not, I guess I could fairly say it's not so imperative that we can put it on the next one.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
Let's do that.
I think my 2 cents on the topic would be that morale is important, and we need a lot of election workers, and the election worker day is very long. And so I feel like feeding them is the least that we can do to say thank you for giving up a really long day in service to your community. That would just be my 2 cents, but I totally respect that Finance will discuss it at an upcoming meeting too.
Thank you for your feedback, Becky.
Yeah.
I think that was, that was it for me.
Okay, all right. Is there a motion then to approve the bills that have been submitted to you?
So moved.
So moved. Support. All right, moved and supported. Any further discussion on the bills?
No.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we're acknowledging the receipt of those bills. They've been paid already. We're not authorizing payment, but we're authorizing that we've seen those and received those. All right, item 10. This is a change from rural residential to low density residential of a parcel.
We were going to talk
Oh,
about
that's right.
interest.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Item 9C, State Representative Luke Meerman. Good to see you, Luke.
Thank you. Is this on?
Yeah.
I like it. Thank you for your time. I know you have other things to do. I'm grateful to be here. I want to start off by apologizing that this is the first time in 2 years you've officially seen me here. I know I've had many conversations with many of you, over the last 2 years, but I'll try to be a little more consistent coming here. I got to follow in Senator Vickery's footsteps, so I know he made it here more than me. I did think it would be appropriate for me to not come just before the election, so you don't think I only come here asking for your vote. So, anyway, I held off a little bit, and now I'm here, and I'm just grateful to be honored to serve the people of the 88th District. I try to make sure everyone knows that it's the people's seat that I sit in. They made a decision in November to ask me to do it for 2 more years, and then 2 years after that, they can decide again. But it's the people's seat, and I try not to refer to it as Luke Meerman's seat, because it's not. I hope I'm available. I think most of you have my cell phone number. If you don't, you can ask Mr. Wieringa, and he'll give it to you. But please reach out if you need something. We do work on very specific things at times for townships and other things, and I'll talk about a few of those things. I want to start off by talking about Ethan Cody is a high school senior in Coopersville, and he's organizing a Lansing Day on Saturday for students. asking for fall sports to be back on the table, speaking to the governor through peaceful protesting. And I'm in 100% support of what he's doing. I want to encourage him. I want to give him all the help and whatever he needs, because I think it's important. And we saw the kids show up for fall sports, fall football, and we saw that decision reversed this last fall. And we're hoping for the same thing now. We've all been through so much, and we could all share stories. But I wake up in the morning thinking about our businesses and many of these things that our community is going through right now. It is very stressful in so many different ways. Whether it's the nursing home residents, social worker reaching out to me, begging them to be able to eat in the same room. That was an issue we were trying to deal with 6 months ago or 4 months ago. And I could go on and on, but I just want to acknowledge what we've been through, what we're going through. I also want to make sure that we, as West Michigan, as Ottawa County, Georgetown Township, we continue to treat each other with respect. We can have these very strong disagreements, whether, you think I should have a mask on right now, or you think I put a mask on and I've given up all my liberties. Those are two very strong opinions, and we can have that disagreement, but I think it's important how we have the disagreement. Do we, despise each other? Do we look at each other with disdain, or do we honestly disagree and, do our peaceful protesting, maybe campaign against each other? That's fine. That's all good. That's the safety relief valve for our democracy, for our grand republic. But we've got to do it with respect, and I think we can do it with respect and come out stronger on the other end of this. Real quick, Senator Victory is now Judiciary Chair. That's brand new. Senator Pete Lucido is Montcalm County Prosecutor. That happened in November. So they're in the middle of Roger's 4-year term. There's a pretty big, important seat that opened up as a chair, and he's been recently appointed as Judiciary Chair. Again, very powerful seat, and I'm excited for him to have that seat. There's a lot of stuff going to happen through there. You saw a bunch of criminal justice things moving through the judicial committees and through the Lansing and through the governor's office. I think there's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff going on again. I personally found a real connecting point there for me, the criminal justice reform stuff. And I'm not saying that I believe we should go down the road of California or we should go down the road of New York or New Jersey, where people are maybe arrested and they're out on, there is no bail to some extent. I think there's a path too far, but there's a lot of things we can do in between there that I think are very important for making our community more healthy, more successful. And so I found a real passion there, and it's been fun to work on stuff like that. My committee's joint JCAR, Joint Committee, Administrative Rules. I'm just been appointed chair of that. Health Policy Vice Chair, Tax Policy, and Insurance. I sit on those other three. I heard somebody talk about open meetings and a virtual component of it. Please reach out to me with your perspective on that. We will have to do some more changes to the Open Meetings Act. A couple different perspectives. One is, we want the residents to be here face-to-face with us as elected officials so that we can have that interaction face-to-face. And another perspective is, listen, whatever we can do to get more community involvement in this, get more transparency, get more people seeing what's going on, let's keep that virtual option open, the interaction open. So we'll be looking at that and making some changes before, the end of the end of March, because the current version that we're under kind of falls off then, and there is some more to do. So please reach out. Give me your perspective. They're asking for a couple deep wells over at the Ottawa County Farms landfill. They have to go through EPA and Eagle, Michigan DEQ. So just an FYI, they're 4,400 feet down. They've been done in other places around the state of Michigan, other states. I had probably an hour conversation today with their geologist and a few other people because a few people around me I'm actually within probably a mile and a half of where the wells are going to be. So just FYI, there is a interactive way you can give your feedback to EPA and eventually Eagle. So, a couple last two things I think. What I'm going to want to do with the electoral, with I think some elections reform. That's a broad topic. I think it's kind of a heavy lift, but I think we should consider allowing our electoral votes go to each congressional district. And it's not an original idea to me, but a few other people have mentioned it, or Congressman Huizinga and others. I think it's a way to really showcase the voice of everybody around the state. And so our second congressional district here, however this district votes, that one electoral vote would go towards whichever presidential candidate the second district voted for. Two other states do it, Maryland and I believe Nebraska. I could be wrong. So I think it's something that we should consider. I don't even know yet to what has to happen to make that happen, but I think it should be in the conversation, that I think people would feel more represented. Their voice is heard a little bit more loudly and clearly. Again, some things come up in district. I had a local detective come to us a year ago, and they had a situation, criminal sexual conduct, and there was what they felt was a gap in the law, and I agree with them. And so we're working on some little specific things like that. They come up in the district, work with Lee Fisher and others on that. So we try to be useful, try to be helpful, because that's where we find out what's not going right for the residents often is on the ground, real examples. I think I'll just leave with this. I have a letter here, and I don't really want to go into much detail. I'll just maybe put it on the table and you can look at it later. It's going to be asking to see if you would like to join me in making a statement publicly. And I think it would be important for the community to hear from as many of us as would want to join on. And I believe the district is wanting something like this to be said. Don't worry, I'm not going to hold it against you if you decide not to, but I think it's an opportunity for us to say this is what we believe, this is what we want. Some of us have expressed our opinion in the past, but I think this could be a little different because it will be the elected, whoever decides to, elected officials of the 88th district. At some point we're going to open it up to some businesses and maybe some individuals if they want to get on. So there'd be a couple more copies here. If you're all wondering in the audience what it's saying, you're welcome to read it. It's nothing secret. But please take a copy, look it over, get a hold of me. But it'll be coming a little more official over the next few days. But you're the first ones to see this. I can answer questions or I can be done.
Appreciate the update. Thank you.
I have a question for you. You actually gave us quite a bit, so I gotta go back to some of my notes on my other page. I'm not sure if you would know this off the top of your head, but you mentioned the criminal justice reforms. I'm assuming you were alluding to some of the bills that Senator Victory, thank you, that Senator Victory introduced in the last legislative session that you alluded to being released, that sometimes they can go too far without bail, but I'm assuming what you're getting at is the bills where law enforcement, I want to say it was for misdemeanors that some sort of encouragement that they release individuals with an appearance ticket rather than bringing them to jail, awaiting. Is that kind of, am I on the right track of what you were talking about?
Yeah, there's quite a few different packages out there. Victory was part of that one. The House had some bail bonds reform, is what some of us call it. There's a few research out there that still has some incarceration type reforms. And one I'm working on personally is felony firearm. There's a mandatory part of felony firearm, and I'd like to get rid of the mandatory part of it. We're actually proposing to increase from 2 to 3 years for the first offense, but we'd like to get back to giving the authority and autonomy to the judges to kind of look at what is the circumstances surrounding this. So that's a little individual for me. It's actually a really heavy thing. It's a hard thing to get done, that one in particular. But there's all kinds of other things, and you mentioned a couple.
I guess my question for you on that is, my understanding is that the encouragement of writing the appearance tickets and then releasing individuals was just on nonviolent offenses. Was that put in there, or am I reading that wrong from like a news article and not the bill itself?
I don't know what Victory's bill talks about. I know some of the pieces that we were talking about in the House, and it had to do with the ability to pay the bail. It had to do with what it was, the crime that it was. I'm not personally interested in getting rid of bail itself. I think it serves a very important role. I'm just trying to make it fit maybe a little bit more the individual, the crime.
Okay. And then would you mind saying again, you said you're the chair of which committee?
JCAR, Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. It used to be the most powerful committee in the legislature. It's not anymore, but.
Bless your heart.
Was it
like a snoozer. I'm sorry.
Vice Chair of Health
Policy.
Health Policy. And did you say 3 more or 2?
2 more, tax policy and insurance policy.
That's busy.
Yeah, most of us get 4. I'm grateful for what I have. Yeah, keeps you busy.
A lot of reading.
Yeah, and this, you get all the departments sending you their proposed rule changes. That's what Joint Committee on Administrative Rules is. So all the departments have to submit what they. In the past, before Engler, that committee was the most powerful committee, and because they basically had total control over the expansion of any bureaucratic rules.
Mm-hmm.
Often in law, we make provisions for some updates as things go along, but from my perspective, the bureaucracy has kind of grown into a life of its own, and the legislature no longer really has the authority to say, we believe this is outside of what the law intended, what we started with, or your proposed changes to whatever it might be, wastewater management or something, goes beyond that. I view the legislature as the voice of the people, and there is a way we're going to try with JCAR to restore some, I think, authority to JCAR and authority to the people's voice through the legislature.
It means it just sounds not thrilling, but very important. It is very important.
It didn't quite
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Regulation-wise, very important.
You said the changes. There's changes you guys are considering to the OMA to be coming by March. Is there already a bill number associated with that? No. My same question then is the election law changes that you guys are considering. Are there bills introduced already about those?
I'm sure there's some, but I don't think a comprehensive package has really been discussed at length yet. There's a few more reports. Oversight Committee in both the Senate and the House will be coming out with oversight recommendations for elections. Representative Steve Johnson is now chair of Oversight, and he just told us he has 3,000 documents that came from Secretary of State, along with some other pieces. There were subpoenas given in November and December, and so some of that is starting to flow in right now, and they'll look at it to see if they believe their subpoena was fully complied with, and if it's not, they'll keep pushing to get more information.
And then the mandatory portion of the felony firearm possession, it's already a bill on that introduced, or?
No, but you can look up what I dropped last 2 years ago, and I don't know the numbers on those. But if you look up mandatory felony firearm, it'll come up in an article.
Did you say you were the one that introduced it?
2 years ago.
Did you say you were the one that introduced it 2 years ago? That's all the questions I had for you. Thank you very much.
Good. Anyone else? Luke, we appreciate the update that you provided tonight.
Thanks, Luke.
Yeah. Okay, and I was going to say, feel free to move on to your next thing. All right, and on to our next thing, item number 10 now. It's a request for a ordinance or zoning change from rural residential to low-density residential for a certain parcel of land. I imagine you read the staff report. Does anyone wish to put this before us by way of a motion?
So move.
Support.
Moved and supported. All right. Like, reading the staff report, they're saying it's adjacent to LDR, utilities available, consistent with the text of the master plan. I think, Gary, you were part of that discussion. Any thoughts you wish to bring us? No? Okay.
Pretty straightforward.
Yep. Any comments, questions? Anyone? No? All right, there's a roll call vote. So, Mr. Clerk?
Supervisor.
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Treasurer?
Yes.
Mr. Swam? Yes. Mr. Valley?
Yes.
Mrs. Steele?
Yes.
And Mrs. Henry?
Ooh, was that a Mrs.? He's listening.
Yes.
Yes.
And Mrs.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, he wasn't listening. Never mind. You're good.
We're good.
All right. Item number 11. By the way, I do see Mr. Stivey. He's a fixture here now, so I imagine if people have questions, they can call on you. Item 11, another zoning change here, high-density residential to neighborhood services is out in the area, 42nd Avenue, not far from Grand Valley. I guess it used to be, this area used to be NS and changed to high density, and now they want a portion of it to go back to NS as a coffee shop. What else would a college kid want, right? So, is there a motion to place this before the board?
So move.
Support.
All right. Comments?
Just that my sophomore is going to be thrilled if this goes through, so.
All right. Will it matter which brand of coffee goes there?
I'm not sure she really cares.
Yeah, it's coffee. All right.
She's got the cookie place right by her apartment, and this would be like, what, a mile down the road, so.
Well, again, consistent with the master plan, obviously in the midst of high density residential there, so. All right. Roll call vote.
Supervisor.
Yes.
Clerk is a yes. Treasurer?
Yes.
Mr. Schwam? Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Valley? Steele?
Yes.
And Mrs. Hunter?
Yes.
Okay, here's passed. Item 12, general liability insurance quote. This is something we discussed in the Finance Committee, and we can talk about this some more once it's before the board. So does anyone wish to place before the board the quote for approval that we received?
I'll make the motion to approve the quote as recommended by Finance.
Support.
All right, discussion.
How much payroll do we pay workers' comp on? You know, what we pay for a rate, do you know, for workers' comp?
I don't know that the rate, there's different rates, because like fire is one rate.
Well, I get that, but
I can get you the schedule, but
I'm just curious, because it just seems, I pay $10 on 100, but my rate is up there because I did commercial work, so, but your secretarial work and that stuff was, 80 cents on the 100, so.
Right.
Is the fire department included in this?
Yes. DPW is included. So yes, they're all charged a different rate and they're all audited at the end, so.
Yeah. It just seems like a lot of money for liability too I know it's a township, but.
So,
Yeah.
are you,
Yeah.
sorry, are you still asking a question, Gary?
Yeah, I'm just, without knowing the rates and how it's put together, it's hard to tell if that's a good number or not, just because, your comp is based on your payroll. Your liability is based on also on payroll, but it's also based on vehicles and stuff too, so,
But like election workers will drop off a little bit, so this year, because we won't have as many, so it'll change a little bit too, so when the audit's complete.
is it comparable years, is this good or is this high or is this low? I mean, are we trending just a little bit every year or are we?
Workers' comp is normal.
Okay.
The liability is skyrocketed.
Is it?
Yes.
Does Michael or Ryan wish to address, because we talked about this at length, yeah.
Yeah, so what we ran into in committee was the fact that we have 6 days to make this decision, as of right now. February 1st, we would no longer have insurance as a township. We requested it previously to have 3 quotes. We wanted to have options as far as what we can choose from. Unfortunately, we got 1 back. We had a lot that did not provide a quote. So it came down to we had 1 quote. This is what it is. Obviously, it's substantially higher than before. So I guess what we'll discuss moving forward would be the next year, we definitely need to have it quoted out much better.
Well,
that's kind of what we ran into.
If I could add then piggyback on that. So, it begs the question why, why wouldn't people quote us? And we had a number of claims that were made, and of course it's a claims-based business, a number of claims that were made and made us not desirable to a couple of the places that they marketed us. And Barron's Hendrick Site is the one who marketed it. They're independent and they're not, leading you to a certain source, but they're looking for options. We were turned down twice, and so kind of fed into a discussion about, hey, what were those claims? How can we lessen the opportunity for them? That's part of what we need to wrestle with when we take it back up in finance and eventually, have discussion as a board about is what are some practical measures or steps we can take to limit, the possibility, right, or to reduce the risk of such claims. Michael, anything you wanted to add?
Oh, I would just say it only went to Barron's Hendrick and Site.
Yeah.
No other agent was asked to bid on this. They put it to market, and some underwriters declined to even bid on it because of the liability loss that we've incurred over the past 6 months.
Can I just clarify?
Multiple years.
Sorry, what was that?
The liability losses were over multiple years. So there's 3 major ones. And,
one just settled, one's pending.
Yeah, one was from 2018, one's from 2020, and then one was older than that even, so.
So you're saying, you wanted 3 quotes. Sounds like you're clarifying is, we ended up getting, we were seeking 3 quotes, but they were going to be in theory from 3 different underwriters, but the same agent. Is that what I'm?
Well, we were looking for 3 different agencies, and it is kind of a niche market, municipality insurance.
Okay.
But Barron's Hendrick and State put it out to market, which is what insurance companies do. We insure your car, you call your agent, they check with 5 different underwriters.
They're an independent agent, is what you're saying.
Yep. So a different agent might have some overlapping underwriters, and some might have completely different.
Okay.
And that's why we were looking for 3 separate agencies, because some might have connections that the others don't have.
So back in December, that's when we requested 3. We ended up getting an extension for another month. That's why we're to February 1st. Otherwise, January 1st, it was going to be done. Yeah, so we got a 30-day extension.
So did I
31 days.
Did I hear you correctly that you, so going into, this is already 2021, going into 2022, the plan would be then for the committee or whomever to do something different so that you are getting quotes from at least 3 different agencies, not just underwriters? Is that?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. And so just so I can make sure, because when I originally read this, I guess I was like, well, gosh, this seems like an obvious one. We'll go with our expiring premium, of course. That's cheaper. And then it sounds like that's not the option because they're dropping us, or we're choosing we don't want them.
They've canceled us.
They canceled.
They canceled us.
Yep.
Was it because of the?
They initially told us because we reached a population threshold of more than 50,000, and they didn't serve that population threshold. Well, we've been over that threshold for some time now, so we think the third incident is what triggered them to research that and drop it. They actually did a review with us and did a full inspection of us at the beginning of December. So we thought we were good to go. I mean, they came in, they inspected all our properties, so they did the full tour. But
So then when did we get the notice that they were canceling?
in December,
After the December.
after the review,
Okay.
so when they were going to give us our quote, they canceled us instead, which got us to have to scramble. They agreed to a 1-month extension, and we thought we'd get more quotes, but the incidents have caused some problems to be able to get more quotes.
So, and again, I don't know if you'd be the right guy to answer this then. So did you mention there were 3 incidents?
Yes.
Are they all related to, so I'm just seeing that the open market quote is, quite a bit higher, percentage-wise. I don't know, what is it, like a third higher for the property, more than twice as high for the general liability, almost 3 times as high for the wrongful acts and errors and omissions coverage. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what EPLI. Do you know what EPLI?
That's
Like protection.
harassment type of.
Okay. So that's significantly more. That's almost 20 times more. So is the 3 claims that we have, are they in one of these?
Not related to directly like that with the quote they've told us. The 3 claims were 2 were auto accidents,
Okay.
and 1 was the roof of the ice arena, which we no longer own.
Okay. Which you would think they would say, oh, that was responsible, you sold it, so you didn't have any further issues with that.
You would think that would be the case. It seems to be the 3rd big claim in whatever 5-year period or whatever period they pick seems to be a big problem. So
I'm sorry.
hopefully that'll drop off soon.
So all 3 of these happened, did you say, over 5 years or 3 years, or what did you say?
Now, 1 happened in 2020, 1 was in 2018, and I don't remember the ice arena, which year that was, but it was right before we sold it.
Okay.
16, 17-ish.
And the auto accidents, I'm assuming is just a typical auto accident?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just, as I said that out loud, that the error, or the, I guess what's harassment, and then the errors and omissions, that those 2, one being 3 times as much and the other one being 20 times as much, it just strikes me as odd that the claims aren't in those categories.
They said they didn't quote it exactly. They don't quote it exactly they quote it based on how they do it, and it's not necessarily all related to those claims for each category.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
I have a question. So when you deal with insurance companies, because I deal with, not at this scale, but quite a bit yet, some of the insurance companies that you do, that's why I asked Dan how much training they do, because your risk management ties to any sort of training you do. So, Dan's got a record that he's training his firemen quite often on a regular basis, and your insurance premiums take that into account. It's like you can have an OSHA audit come to your job site, and they can do an audit without writing you a ticket, and they come through, and then they check all your equipment, see if everything's working, and then kind of gives you a 30-day reprieve where they won't come down and write anything as long as you do the audit. It's all politics.
Yeah, it makes me wonder with what you're saying. It's too bad. Oh, you're still here. Good. If there's anything too that if somehow the 4 rating, has any bearing on this, and if you're able to somehow get, up to the 3, if that's going to help.
Well, I'm not worried so much about
the fire department rating affects the property owners for the building coverage. That affects every single homeowner, that 3, what he was talking about. When you quote your own insurance company for your home,
Yep.
they'll rate you for our fire department. So every taxpayer that owns property in Georgetown saves money if we can get from the 4 to 3.
Correct.
So before August, could you know it?
So
it's not going to help us, though, in this context.
not in this scenario.
It'll help the township. It'll help each property owner. That's why my point is, maybe we got to do some sort of a risk management with the other employees. I mean, I'm happy the fire department's doing that kind of thing, but is that something we got to do with?
I mean, that's what we actually did when the insurance reps came through.
Okay.
We went through all of our procedures, all of our policies in December. We thought we were fine. They have like a list of recommendations that we were working on, and pretty much minor, but the claims are you still have a rear-ending accident that causes the problem. So
I do know that, like even a homeowner's policy, if you have 3 claims within so many years, that you're automatically dropped by the state of Michigan. That's a law. And you have to go get a different insurance company. I had 3 small claims on my house. I mean, we're talking maybe $300-400 each. And I had a 4th, and I called her, and she says, I wouldn't do it. Well, what's the deal? I says, if you claim, you'll have to drop you, and you'll have to move on to somebody else, and then that claim will carry with you, so that when you get prices, it's like the Carfax. It all just kind of moves along with you. So you got to watch how you claim things. Another question would be, is there like a township self-insurance fund that we can join or not? Do they do a cooperative?
that's what we were in.
Oh, we were. Okay. I'll quit asking questions.
So that probably, actually, no, I'm glad you asked that, because maybe I'm making an assumption here, but that seems to me that would have been a more economical option. So that would explain why, if we're comparing it to typical market options, that it would be more expensive that way. So thanks for asking that, Gary.
I'm glad we have insurance. It would be worse if we didn't have any insurance, but yeah, it's something we need to kind of keep our eye on.
And I'm sorry, I was going to say, how does it work, like with your homeowner's insurance? You can terminate partway through the year and switch carriers. If we got a great quote in June or something, are you permitted to?
You're asking me such a hypothetical, low-risk question. I don't really want to spend that much time on it.
Sure. But it's something that maybe when we talk about it further in finance, as we look at other options, we'll talk about that too.
Right. If we had 2 or 3 quotes right now and we were trying to get it, ultimately I think that our last claim has to drop off whatever history period they're looking at before we're going to see this open up and get lots of quotes.
Okay. All right.
I'm assuming, and maybe it was part of the motion and I didn't hear it, but I'm assuming that we're looking at doing it with the 4 installment, paying it in the 4 installments instead of one lump sum?
I'm not sure we can do it either way, but yes, we usually just pay it and be done. But yes, we can pay it in installments. It's not a problem.
Now I'm going to be honest, I didn't do the math. Is there an additional cost in?
No. In fact, it might even be their math rounded down, so we might actually save 50 cents or $1 or something. Yeah.
Well, the reason why I ask is if the finance committee somehow was, following up and, I'm just going to pick your magical number of June, month of June there, that if we got some sort of better quote and we were paying quarterly, it's not even a refund situation. It's just, like with car insurance, you just pay monthly or 6 months and then you switch kind of deal.
Sure. Yeah.
So
the sad part is that after the last recession, a lot of companies dropped workers' comp and liability insurances. So even my business, I had a tough time. I had liability with State Farm. They said no more liability. So I had to turn around and get quotes from different companies. And a lot of companies consolidated, so you're only dealing with several companies that are handling liability and workers' comp. And every state is different. So Michigan has a different workers' comp law than a lot of other states. You can't go across the state line. You got to deal with companies in Michigan. So it's
and they
kind of a weird thing, but that's kind of the way it happened after the last recession. It seems like it was a big consolidation of insurance.
And they won't recommend going back to quotes. The other companies won't like that if we've only been with the company for 4 months or something too. That won't help us obtain quotes. It'll also harm us to quote it too often.
On a score, okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like having your credit report checked.
Sort of like that, yeah.
I will say, if you do the installments, I just did the math, you save the taxpayers $3.
Oh, well, we're going with the installment. Plus, I'm sure we have interest on our funds in an account somewhere.
All right.
And I was going to say that $233,000 is for 11 months too. That's not a full year.
That is significantly more.
Oh, yeah.
Can you stop being the bearer of bad news? I was starting to feel better about the $3 Ryan just said.
I'm a realist. I deal in facts. But I was going to say, so in coming up in finance, we're going to talk about the township employee vehicle policy, and that's part of risk management. So I think we can talk to the insurance company and say, what can we do? Because one of the accidents was in a township vehicle after hours outside the township. Insurance company looks at that kind of stuff. So there's definitely risk management steps we can take. Sure. Get that. Was it apples to apples on this one? I think I asked in finance, but I don't know if I got an answer.
Yes.
Compared to everything, same numbers, everything directly.
As equal as it can be. I'm sure there's some difference in their policy, but yes, it's equal as close as it can be. So.
In terms of coverage limits, is what you mean?
Yes.
So maybe I'm making an assumption here, but if I heard you correctly, you guys are going to be looking at perhaps talking with, whether it's this insurance agent or somebody else, but in getting an idea of what kinds of things we could try to implement, policies that you guys could then take that information and whatever, I guess make recommendations up to us as the board or something of that nature?
That's right. Correct.
Sounds like a great deal. Like a coupon.
That's right. All right. Well, we've got to vote on this one though for now. Hold our nose a little bit here.
Yeah.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. That is approved. Item 12B, this is a discussion point that Becky had raised earlier about virtual participation. So Becky, you want to take it away?
Thanks. I have made peace with the fact that we are meeting in person. But sorry, my microphone is so loud. But I am struggling tremendously with, it might not be the letter of the Open Meetings Act, but I believe it's the spirit of the Open Meetings Act that we are trying to be as transparent to our community as possible and involve our community to the greatest extent that we can. And to that end, I believe that by not live streaming our meetings and by not allowing people to make virtual public comments, I believe that we are essentially shutting off access to this meeting to people with emphysema, COPD, asthma and other breathing disorders, MS, Parkinson's, cystic fibrosis, cardiac and kidney disease. These are all people whose medical providers are saying, stay home. Those who are immunocompromised, those who are fighting cancer, those like my son who are just medically complex, the elderly people in our community whose providers are telling them stay home as much as you can, limit your germ exposure while we're in this unprecedented global pandemic. And not just those people who they themselves are suffering, but also people who are the primary caretakers of those people who need to really look out for their own immune system because they are the primary caretakers for medically compromised people. We're denying them access to the meeting because it is medically unsafe for them to be here. To that end, I would ask the board, I'll even make a motion. I would make a motion that beginning with our next board meeting, that all Monday night board meetings are live streamed to the public via Zoom, so that the link is printed at the first page of our agenda, similar to what we were doing, what the previous board was doing since last March. That a Zoom link is shared as part of our agenda, and that those viewing from home are given the option to make public comment virtually. We would all still be in the room. We would all still be present for roll call and all of the voting. But we would be giving our community members immediate live stream access to our meeting and the opportunity to make public comment so that it is timely and part of the record and part of our board meeting, if they don't feel like coming to this meeting where masks are not being consistently enforced and they're concerned for their own germ exposure. So that's my motion, to begin with our next Monday night board meeting, live streaming them and giving the non-board member public the opportunity to make public comment during the appropriate times and with a 3-minute time limit, but the opportunity to do that virtually.
I'll support that.
Thank you.
Can you help me with the logistics, just so I understand what you're proposing? So the comments that would be made during the 2 public comment periods, would they be made, electronically and then read by, say, the superintendent, or they're actually, you're envisioning you hear the person's voice? Or
I am envisioning, when we were doing our board meetings via Zoom and the people could raise their little electronic hand and we would see their picture and hear their voice in live time. I am picturing that. I'm just essentially picturing and I would even be happy to do the text piece if I need to. It's similar to how John's teaching right now, where you're teaching the students who are in your classroom, but you're also teaching those virtually at home. One device that is in a Zoom meeting, and then when it's public comment time, we take comment from the public that's in the room, and then we say, those attending virtually on Zoom, if you have a public comment to make, please raise your little virtual hand. And we put the Zoom session on the screen, and we listen to their public comments, and when their 3 minutes are up, then they're done talking, just like they would be here.
I see. Okay, I understand now. Also, some of these, it's probably Facebook or one of these where you can observe live stream.
Yeah.
And you got hearts floating up across the screen, and you got
That's why I was hoping for Zoom instead of all of those.
Thank you. I want to make sure you weren't suggesting,
Nope.
That was a stupid comment, and all these little scrolling, comments as we go. Okay. So this would be, you participate at the appointed times, you otherwise are observing.
Yeah.
Okay. I have questions, but I don't want to monopolize here. I have a couple more questions.
Actually, I want just a moment to think about what my questions would be. So.
Okay. I guess 2 questions that come to mind, 3 that come to mind. One is, I'm not, much of a tech guy, so I don't know technologically what that would require, and that's the question I'd want to have answered. Whether we got to, purchase equipment or whether they say, oh, it's easy enough to do, we've got it. 2, to the extent that there's any sort of legal ramification one way or the other, I don't want to mistakenly step in it. I understand your motive, which is, it would seem almost naturally the other way, which is, don't inhibit them, don't worry about allowing participation, worry about not allowing it, but maybe there's a countervailing point. And then the third would be, is this something that you would be willing to limit until such time as the pandemic were declared over? Meaning, I don't know if this is something long-term. I don't think that's hiding the ball from anybody to say that once that were lifted, if this were improved, that from then on again, as is normal, you want to say something publicly, you come to the meeting.
Absolutely. Yeah. I would happily amend my motion to include, and I meant to say it, but for this to be in place for the duration of the pandemic. For as long as the Ottawa County Health Department and CDC are making recommendations about mask wearing and social distancing, that this is in place as a service to our community. I certainly am not a lawyer, and so I can't speak to the legal pieces of it, but I think that what we're doing right now is excluding. I was in a Denison Historical meeting just this past Thursday, and they wanted to be able to participate, and they wanted to be able to make public comment. They were doing some talking about the local history room here and things like that, and they said, well, how can we join the meeting and how can we make public comments? And it's a sweet lady with emphysema who's on oxygen and has not left her house, has her groceries delivered and does not leave her home. And I just kind of said, I don't have a way for you. Because I know that you're not leaving home and the only option would be coming here, and her health providers have said absolutely not. And so I do think that I know we're probably not violating the letter of the Open Meetings Act, the letter of the law, but I do believe we are violating at least the spirit of that act. This is something that, I have my own personal projector at home. I can plug my projector into my computer. If my computer could sign into the township Zoom, literally I could do all this sitting right here while we're talking. Like, it is not a big undertaking. However we're going to project it, whatever computer is connected to Zoom would need to be connected to that projector with the sound turned up, and there would need to be some sort of camera so that they could observe what's going on in the meeting. But I could do all of that with equipment that I already own. I can do most of that with my cell phone or my laptop. So I'm happy to support it in any way I can. I'm happy to work with township staff to see, how the devices that we have can make this happen. I'm happy to do all the legwork because I think that it makes our meetings more inclusive as we get through this uncharted territory. But
I appreciate that you touched on everything I asked, and no slight to you. I want to get additional input from either Dan as a techie guy, or logistically, what are we talking about as Becky's describing? Is it as
well? We
simple as that,
actually made some attempts when we first went to this method, and we can do it, and we had some setups to do it. It's just you create an expectation that people are going to be able to see all 7 of you, which we can't do. We've tried it. Someone has to move around. The camera is going to have to move it around to get it and to get the screen, because there's an idea that that person is going to be able to see those things and see the different person speaking. We tried to put different cameras in here, and you practically had to go back to the middle of the room to get, someone there to get the 7. And then the trouble we created was the sound quality. We struggle to hear through that mic, through the Zoom piece. And so I'm not saying we can't do it, because we can do it, because we did it. It's just that you're going to create a lot of other issues of sound quality and people not hearing that person speak or that person speak in the process. We're recognizing that you're going to have some of those issues. Yes, we can do it with how Becky described. We set up a couple computers to try to get different angles and muted one and turned one on for voice to try to get 2 different angles, and they could pick the screen they wanted to see. I'm not sure all the people using it would be tech capable enough to get the right screen visible that they want to see, because we couldn't control which screen that person was seeing when we did multiple views. But recognizing there's going to be a lot of problems, yes. Mm-hmm. I just don't want you to think that people are going to be all excited that worked perfect, because it's going to be a little bit of struggle, particularly for certain users.
In essence, you would be creating individual users on the Zoom with the different computers. They would have to manually click on that individual to be able to have it show up.
Mm-hmm. Or they could do on Zoom a gallery view that would show them all simultaneously.
Bunch style.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the Brady Bunch tiles, right? And if you put 4 cameras in the room, 4 different devices that are signed on as person A, person B, person C, person G, they're going to see, if they click that gallery view, which we could put a 2-sentence statement with the link in the agenda. You're encouraged, if you choose to log in, choose gallery view in the upper right-hand corner. And we're trying this, but we know that we don't have all the kinks worked out yet. But I think that some effort in this direction is better than what we have done since this new board was seated, which is no effort in the direction of involving our people who are medically compromised in the community.
Becky, do you know of anyone else that is doing this? It's very innovative. I think this would be probably one of the first times, but do you know of any other place that's doing this right now?
Teachers are doing it all over the place, teaching their virtual students at home and teaching their students in the classroom simultaneously. I don't know about other governmental entities that are doing it.
Our struggle our struggle was 7 speakers.
Yep.
And another screen. Now, recognizing you won't be able to see them, so that made it a lot easier if you won't be able to see. So putting on there isn't any point, because we don't do the video for the participant. So we took that off. That simplified the number of views, but it was just simply having computers at different tables showing half the room at a time was kind of what we did at these 2 tables.
Yep.
And that's what we did.
So You took off video for the participant. Is that a setting that has to remain the whole time, or if they are acknowledged for public speaking time, would we be able to turn on their video so we can
hear them?
We can turn that on, but what the trouble is that came is then for the people who were, we did some people in the office just all practicing it changed all their screens right away. Because we were sharing the document that they were seeing, and then they just had on the side so they could see the document with the agenda, and this on the side they were having the video of 2 angles of the board. And they could pick which one. But as soon as you added another speaker, it started switching those for different users. So yes, that's why we were a little concerned about adding 4 or 5 public speakers, because then some struggle to get the right one they wanted. Some wouldn't, but some would.
Well, right. Well, I think that's the thing is, when you do gallery view, if you have 10 people that show up and you have a big enough screen, that's like no big deal. If it becomes popular enough that we have 30, 40 people, 50, whatever, especially with smaller screens, then your gallery view shows less people, and then some people don't understand about like clicking the arrow to...
That wasn't the case. When we were doing our meetings via Zoom in March, April, May, June, the way that the township's Zoom works is each board member got a unique login code. So I logged in with a link that no one else got. And Jim logged in with a link that no one else got, and we were logged in as participants. So in gallery view, you would see us. But then the link that is shared in the agenda to the public they do not show up in the gallery link. You can click on the bottom of Zoom to see participants, and they are essentially there as an audience, and you can see their names listed, but they don't have a little square in the Brady Bunch. They don't have a square tile on the screen unless they are recognized through whoever's running the tech to speak during public comment. If they raise their little electronic hand and then their audio is turned on, then they become a tile on the gallery view from the time that that's turned on.
Is there not a setting to turn their video on if they're recognized for public comment?
There probably is.
There is a site to turn the video on, but then they become part of the squares. The reason we went this way in the first place, the participant, non-participant, because many communities had a problem with people going onto the meetings, not really part of the public, wanting to display something on a public forum that maybe we would all consider inappropriate. And that's what was happening in different ones. So they switched to this participant view and then a gallery view where people could see the meeting, but wouldn't display video. They could.
If you're recognizing somebody and you're turning on their audio, they do pop up into the squares.
But it was just like their initials or their profile picture.
Right, but his first thing that he raised as far as moving the squares, if it's bringing a square up, it's already going to happen.
Yeah,
but I guess for me, if we're worried about people that have various medical conditions, and the concern that I'm hearing is like a de facto discrimination, we can't, I would be against if we're going to not allow people to be seen for them, but also for us. So for example, if there's, they have public comment they want to make about something where it's just really hard to describe it, and there's like a map of something and they want to point at that, that would be, I wouldn't want to preclude their participation in that way. For me, it's one thing if, I don't even know if we've actually had anybody that I have been able to hear when they're speaking at the microphone. You're making a very good effort, I would say. I thank you, because I can tell you're being louder just so I can.
No, that's my voice.
I appreciate it anyway.
Peace all day.
So I'm going to take it as a valiant effort anyway. But especially through the tech. I mean, you're also in the same room.
Yep.
So I can pick up on other like nonverbal cues, but I'm not going to be the only person who might be, maybe somebody in the audience here or somebody in the audience, virtually might be needing to read the lips of the speaker as well or something of that nature. So if we could do that, to me that would be a huge thing, is that if the whole purpose is to be inclusive and not stop people from participating because of a disability, or that we're really being all inclusive. So and it sounds like the one concern about moving the squares is going to happen if they're going to be acknowledged verbally anyway.
Yep.
So I guess to me that would be one thing. As far as the audio, because of my hearing disability, I actually can't tell what direction sound is coming from. I hear an echo, but do we have speakers where this is coming out of?
You can see the speakers.
Well, I can't tell if I'm looking at speakers or
There's
cam lights or...
There's 7 speakers. There's 3 holes in the front, and then you have these 2 and these 2 speakers. So
This is taking a minute.
What? Where are you pointing?
It's black circles.
Those are speakers?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so those are speakers, and then where did you say there's also out there?
In squared in, or there's circles.
Okay.
White.
So, I would say, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a tech expert at all, but it would appear that it sounds like you think you have equipment to at least try it out.
Yeah.
I think that would be fine. I guess I have a question of the super handsome man in the corner over here. Do you have, just curious, are you able to see with that angle, who can you see or who can you not see of? Okay, so it's the potential that if I'm just, you know, if you were offering like your cell phone or something,
Yeah.
if she had a thing right next to it, you could just keep an eye on it since you sit there anyway? Well, I almost wonder though, that's video, I don't know. I'm, again, just throwing this out there, I'm not the tech expert. I'm wondering if there's something through like your computer, if you're logged in that way, somehow audio is tied to that versus video feed, you know what I mean? So that there's, I don't know.
We can figure it out. I was just trying to lower the bar of expectation that it was not going to be without problem.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Our bar of expectation is not high, but I think any effort is better than the effort that we have put in so far. And I just feel very strongly that we've got to step up our game. The good thing about public comment is that public comment historically with this board has not been a real-time dialogue. It has been make your public comment. Maybe we will revisit it in discussion. Maybe we will revisit it in a future committee meeting. Maybe we just take note of it and move on and nothing ever happens. And so to your point, Catherine, about your needing to read lips and what if it's hard to hear, my one thought would be that we can do it this way and then we would have it recorded. And so if there was someone whose audio wasn't great, or who was speaking rather rapidly or something like that, you could always, and any of us could always revisit that recording after the meeting, you know, in the weeks ahead, and then decide if the information shared in public comment is something that we want to act upon. Maybe if it's the first public comment on an agenda item, it has to be a little bit more timely. So if there was something you felt like you didn't hear well, then maybe after that public comment, we would need to take just a second and make sure we all heard it the same if it's on an agenda item. But if it is second public comment and they have 3 minutes they could read us a recipe or sing us a song if they wanted, right? There's really no restrictions on second public comment. And so if we had the recording of that after the meeting we could go back and re-listen to if the audio wasn't great or something, I feel like at least that's a step in a helpful direction. It's certainly not as great for someone like you that counts on reading lips and facial expressions and those pieces. It's not ideal, but I feel like it's a step better. Yeah.
That's the only thing. I wonder if you could make it where the public comment would have to be recorded as video.
Yeah.
So then you would...
Yeah, that would be fine.
I'm great with that. Yep.
And then the video would be right here. It'd be actually perfect.
Yep.
And then it would just be like if in the rare instance then I still couldn't understand, I might...
It's recorded.
I would probably ask, just like if somebody was here, I'd ask just to make sure I heard them correctly. But you've brought up the two of you have brought up some good questions or comments, and I guess I kind of wanted to follow up on some of those things. As far as the legal problems of doing it, I think if we utilize what you're talking about in terms of having, a very brief, direction statement there with the link, having the, whoever said it was like a guarantee that there's a statement that there's no guarantee of quality because, we're just trying to offer this as a service in addition to the ability to have public, be here present. I don't think let me put it this way. The language of the OMA, we wouldn't be violating anything by having it, as long as, we're clear to people to let them know those things. We'd be totally fine, in my opinion. So I think we'd be good that way. I guess we'll have to wait to see what comes by March if there's going to be changes that way, but with the legislature. But my only question, I think, would be just for clarification, and I guess to some degree a point of order, if we had a second on because you made an amendment to your motion that I don't know if we got a second or...
When I amended my motion to say that it would exist as long as mask and social distancing requirements are coming out of the Health Department and Center for Disease Control.
So I guess let me ask, before we get a second, just to clarify, we might come to a point in time where the CDC and the Ottawa County Health Department are doing two different things. Is it possible for you to amend your motion so that it's one of those?
Sure. I would defer to the Ottawa County Health Department since they're local.
And then are you saying a recommendation or requirements for the mask and the social distancing? For example, I have a theory that even when all requirements end up being released, especially since we're not talking about CDC, but the local health department, if it says there's no more requirements, but we're just going to say from now on, because COVID is here to stay, we recommend that those who are immunocompromised continue to do X, Y, Z. I just want to be able to clarify that. Are you saying that it's when our health department is requiring masks and social distancing?
I'm fine with that, and I think that this is something that when that ends, there's not going to be a need for it. There's not going to be people logging on because they would come to the meeting then. But I'm fine with it being Ottawa County Health Department and required.
Okay.
The only thing I would say would be, how would we determine that? I mean, is it going to be something that we discuss each board meeting that, hey, do we approve it for the next meeting? I'm just wondering how far the duration goes out.
Was from now until the Ottawa County Health Department is no longer requires masks and social distancing.
I have a problem with the whole thing. You're setting a precedent that we're going to be doing this forever. Because you're saying that individuals that can't come to a meeting now, we got to take care of. So when this is all done, and my dad says, hey, I'm convalescing in Sunset Manor, I want to see a meeting too. So you're going to continue with this forever and ever because there's always going to be a group that says, I can't come to a meeting personally. I don't want to make the effort to come to a meeting, whatever it is. And you're going to end up doing this forever and ever. You're setting a precedent here that's never going to go away. Because you're always going to have people that are going to say, I can't make it to a meeting. And that's part of coming here in person. You have to remember that as a board, we allow people to come and make public comment, but technically they're only observing what we're doing here. We are a board of trustees doing the work for the township. We allow them to interact with us. We have an email system. They could email all of us. We get emails. You've seen the emails. Hey, I got an issue with this. I'd like to do that. We read those emails. We can act on those emails. It's no different than the 3-minute comments. So my concern is you're setting a precedent for doing this forever because there's always going to be a group of people that's going to say, I can't come to a meeting in person. Either they're going to want to make the effort or they don't want to make the effort, and you're always going to be doing this. And personally, you can say my bar's not that high for the technology. It's not going to be about your bar. It's going to be about the people out there who are going to say, that bar's not high enough for me. I want a camera on each individual. I want a better speaker system. I want to be with all this. Guaranteed, guaranteed, I deal with these people every day. They're like, they want the best that there is. And there is equipment that can do that, but you're going to be spending tens of thousands of dollars to bring that equipment in here to do that. So.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, just kind of, so let's say there was a request by people in the public, the retirement communities, you just mentioned, so I'm not sure what the harm is if we did continue the use of that. So, for example, I guess I would ask then, you made a good point though, I think perhaps if you'd be willing to, well, you already have a second on your amendment, but perhaps another amendment then, technically. What if we said it would be until what you already said, or December 31st, and then we revisit it? So if it's something that this is continuing, we have reasonable time periods that we're going to keep looking at this policy.
And that's why I said, is this something we're going to approve to continue it out? That's why I wanted a duration set on this. I'm all for transparency. And I know we've received emails as far as like wanting to see that. But I agree completely with what he's saying. It becomes a slippery slope where, okay, now what's the point of all these fine people coming? I mean, they could just be on Zoom and do it. You know what I mean? So I am fine with it as long as there's a duration to it. Because you stated that you want to do it during COVID here.
My
so we need to make sure we set
intention is not to set a precedent that we're doing it forever. My intention is people who have otherwise come to meetings previously who can't right now because of COVID. My whole motion and the spirit of my whole motion is COVID related. And I have no problem if a year from now we're past all of this COVID stuff and people are saying, but you did it for me then, I'm fine with saying, tough luck, that was COVID. And now if you want to be part of it, here's when our meetings are and our stuff is published online and video recordings and minutes are posted the following day. I am very comfortable with that. I want to make sure we are not discriminating. And so I am fine with, I think you said December 31st, I'm fine with July 1st. You know, I am fine with us evaluating taking it in 3-month chunks at a time and looking at what the the Ottawa County Health Department is recommending, or requiring. I want to be very reasonable. I am not asking for the world here, but I want to meet some of these people halfway. Especially when it is people who are working their tails off in the Jennison Museum to take down Christmas decorations that they put up and then nobody ever got to see. And they want to be able to participate in a meeting to say, we put up Christmas decorations and nobody ever got to see it, but we want to tell you that we did that and that we look forward to people being back in the museum. I mean, those are the public comments that people want to make that we aren't hearing. And yes, it could be sent in an email, but I think that sometimes then passion and just, your tone and the spirit of your message often is lost when things are just written. And so I am fine with whatever makes you guys, the majority of you, feel comfortable with this as far as stop dates or revisiting. I want to be a team player on that, but I want to move this forward for those people in our community.
Why don't you withdraw your amendment to your original motion?
Okay.
And
withdrawn?
And rephrase a new amendment to that original motion.
Okay. So my new amendment will be that this continues as long as the Ottawa County Health Department is requiring masks and social distancing, and that we will revisit this every 3 months for a board conversation about how it's going and if it is still appropriate, and that it will only continue with a majority vote of the board.
Support. So we've had an original motion, now a motion to amend that has been supported. Is the board ready to vote on the amendment to the original motion?
Just clarification.
Yes.
Would that also be then kind of putting that, we're still talking about having the Zoom link in the agenda with a little bit of the description on how to do that, and then that, we're making that statement that we're not guaranteeing the quality, yada, yada, but that also is encompassing the, I want to say, like, low-cost way of doing this, where you said whatever equipment that you have, and then we can utilize, or if we have something, fine, but if we don't, you're fine helping it to make it happen, since you already have it kind of like in your head about how that would work.
Yeah.
That's kind of envisioned as part of this motion.
I think that we put the link in the agenda, but then you and I could tag team it and run it past Dan or whoever wants to be involved. But I think that we put together a concise couple of sentences that gives people some guidance to choose gallery view, and that just says, this is our best effort to make our meetings as inclusive as possible as we progress through this COVID pandemic.
Okay, that was inherent, I think, in your original motion, so I don't think we require a further amendment to that. And I think by voting on the amendment to the original motion, you're not suggesting that you're going to vote ultimately for the motion. The question before us, I think, now is do we vote, are you ready to vote to amend the original motion to contain the deadline?
Yeah.
Okay? So on that point, I'm going to ask for a roll call on each of these, just so it's clear. Michael?
Okay, I have a question. When is Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, where does that stand with that Open Meetings Act, the extension for Zoom? Is it mid-March where they extended Zoom?
The most recent order that they just put out, is that what you're talking about? I don't know the answer to that, but I think that the fact that this is the Ottawa County Health Department, that alleviates some of those things, and whether, for example, with the emergency orders not quite being following the law there, it's not tying into any of that. It's just what our county department is. Anyway, I think it's just making it less messy.
Well, I believe the legislature actually voted on allowing Zoom meetings.
Yes, but the changes they made were October 16th, 2020.
Oh, it was October?
Yeah, and had nothing to do with...
I thought they did an extension until March.
No, you're conflating two different things. There's what the MDHHS director, statewide director, has done with issuing orders.
Massive gatherings.
And then the changes to the Open Meetings Act that Luke was talking about were signed into law on October 16th, 2020. So that part is what allows Zoom participation under certain requirements, and the way that we're doing that, it fits all those requirements under the new changes. The only thing we don't know is what they might try to do by March. But
well, and I had March in mind when I suggested 3 months, because then in 3 months we can look at it and say, constitutional attorney, where are we at with any of that? Is this, is new legislation standing in the way of this continuing? And here's what the Ottawa County Health Department is saying. And how is it going, and is anybody utilizing this service? And so that was kind of why I had mentioned 3 months, because Mr. Meerman had said that...
My question would be, so if legislature comes back and says we're not going to extend this, it ends March 15, it's done?
No, the law doesn't talk about March. The law itself does not have an end date.
According to the legislature, townships can Zoom forever?
Under certain requirements, but the requirements are not a time frame. The time frames that you're talking about are coming from the orders themselves, which are not law. But the law, the Open Meetings Act law, doesn't have the restrictions or requirements that the hoops you have to jump through as a public body in order to utilize Zoom or whatever are not related to time frames.
It's based on a
There's all kinds of different...
declared by the state or by the county? Or SB 1208 or 1108. I don't remember what.
There are varying requirements. I brought them up in the very first meeting we had when we were talking.
My underlying point is, if we as a board make a motion to have Zoom meetings and the legislature, that expires, we can't continue to.
No, because having a Zoom meeting open to the we're not replacing the fact that people are allowed to be here and that we are going to all physically be present and available for people to have face-to-face interaction with us. We're not replacing that. We're adding something in addition to that. So what we're doing is not at all implicated by even the original OMA before the modification.
So it's something we could have added 2 years ago if we wanted to.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. I just didn't want to get us committing to something that becomes moot in a month and a half or something.
You can always go above and beyond to integrate, to have people involved. The problem is when you
Be
restrict.
more restrictive.
Correct.
So this first vote will be for her to amend her first one, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. And it was to revisit quarterly.
Yep.
Is what I heard, yeah. And I think I heard you say you meant by that the first meeting in April, the first one in July, the first, okay. All right.
And so I guess my other concerns would be too, like I agree with Gary as this is setting a precedent here. And I think we have email and people reach out to us. What's the cost going to be for employees? I know we got free equipment and all that, but how many employees? 2 employees testing for 40 hours? What is the cost involved? So that's just a concern I bring up. I don't think it's a deal breaker, but I mean, it's something we should consider. It's not free labor. I mean,
If I may, though, I guess what I'd say in response, and I hear Gary's concern too, which is why I asked about a deadline, but I'm not so concerned about this board and its ability to act and even to change course. So, for example, the example you just gave, which was, we never saw that coming, or we never saw that expense. There's nothing in this vote to prohibit us from saying at that point, well, I know we intended to do X, but I want to vote Y now. I don't think we can continue this. So we can always, as a board, overrule ourselves in that respect and change course, right? And we're pretty independent minds here. I think people would if they felt that way.
Right, and because what she's saying, correct me if I'm wrong here, based on what we've put out, and that's why I was asking all the pieces to that.
And I appreciate that.
There's zero cost that would be additional unless there's something, I saw the mask come off.
I don't think zero cost is going to make any of you happy with the performance I would expect there would be some modest cost, so I wouldn't try to use the word zero. I think we'll end up having an employee holding a camera probably to make it work a little bit, at least at first. And I'm also going to talk to the finance about changing some of the current cameras we have to see if there's software that can help utilize those and for more purposes. And we might have to update there too, so there may be some other things to make it work a little better, but I don't think we're going with no cost. And even Zoom license costs us money every month, so.
Well, we have that anyway. I'm just trying to think of.
We're not using it anymore, but we will continue. So so the licensing will continue. That's not a big cost. I'm saying it'll be very modest, but there'll be some.
But I guess to your point that if as those costs are brought up or talked about in the finance committee or whatever, and we get to the next April 1st is approaching, and it's like, oh my gosh, this so far has cost us $700 to do this. We didn't see that coming, or whatever the case is, But if it's $70 to do it, I think it just goes to the point that we could revisit it, and if it is something that turns out to be concerning, that it's a greater negative impact on the community than what we thought it would be because of cost or some other reason, then I don't know. I guess.
Yeah, and I love the transparency. That's fantastic. And I think and why stop with board meetings? I think we should do services, finance, utilities, elections, because that's that equal transparency and participation.
I would suggest that we see how it works first, and then maybe when we do the next vote to do that, instead of trying to amend this motion, that perhaps when we do the check-in vote on that we could see if we want to expand it.
Okay.
Temporary, partial transparency.
Well, just make sure we're not biting off more than we can chew, and that it is, I don't know. That's just my, sorry.
I think
we'll
it's
find out
tricky
pretty
when
quick
you're
whether it's
saying
gonna
you don't
work
want to set the
well.
precedent, but then also if we're going to do it, we should do all of it. I would love for it to be every single meeting, because I would love for our community to have that, but I also want to be reasonable about how much we're committing ourselves to, and I want it to be minimal enough that when we move to a new phase of post-global pandemic, that people haven't become so reliant on it that we can't take it away. Which is why I was not thinking committees, I was thinking Monday night board meetings, knowing that most action items that are being discussed in committee come here, and as committee members, we do a good job updating each other on the conversations and the background information that happens in those committees. I feel like this is this is a step in a good direction towards transparency and towards being inclusive and towards meeting the needs of all members of our community.
All right.
I guess it was just one last item.
Yes.
In my other concern, and I don't think Gary touched on it, would be with that increased 3 minutes each, what happens if we've already got some 4-hour meetings in the books on Mondays and tonight, and I think that's out there that we might hit 10 o'clock. Be prepared that if we have 20 people lining up at 3 minutes each, that will become a factor. Well,
I think when we were doing our meetings virtually, when the past board was doing our meetings virtually, though, we weren't getting 20 people, and I don't anticipate.
Right, and I don't think it's
You'll have
possible.
1 or 2, 3. There'll be some special needs, like you mentioned, with the Historic Society that would maybe like to make a presentation, but this is going to be very minimal people, and then we have to look at how we're going to promote this so that they know that it's available. But I think the gesture is wonderful. It's smart, going in the right direction, but we're not going to have an awful lot of people. I'd be shocked, unless an incredible controversy occurs.
I think that's probably true. I think that's probably true. All right, let's take a roll call vote on the amendment to the original motion as defined by Becky, and I trust hopefully Dan and Manette were able to encapsulate that. Yes. Yeah. I mentioned your name. Sorry. Only to say that I think you've encapsulated what that amendment was, not have to restate it a third time. It was the time limit and the revisiting quarterly. So if you would, Mr. Clerk.
All right, we're going to go reverse. Mrs. Henry.
Yes.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes.
No. Mr. Velnick. Mr. Swam.
Yes.
Treasurer.
no.
Supervisor.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well.
Okay, so that was just the amendment to the original motion. Now, on the motion as amended, I feel like we have in our various discussion touched upon the totality of the motion, not just the narrow amendment we just passed. So has everyone had a chance they feel to address it adequately that we can take another vote right now on the totality now of the amended motion? Yes? All right.
I have one last, whoever it was said, I think it was John that said something about getting the word out there. I have never visited any of I guess I probably wouldn't be invited to now, but the communities that we have where we have more of our elderly population who percentage-wise would have more of the care providers saying, please don't go, whatever. So I don't know, just food for thought as part of this, that maybe if there's a way that we could, assuming we do adopt this, that if we could reach out and see if there's ways that we can connect with the management of those communities and just see what we could do so that we're really doing our best to try to reach the people that can't be here, and not just people that didn't want to make it down because it's cold and it's January or something like that. So I don't know if that would be, I'm still fairly new to the community, so I don't know necessarily who would be the best for that. But at any rate, if this passes, because we're going to be done with discussion on the whole topic, I just want to be able to throw that out there.
Okay, good. Yeah, anybody has recommendations, be sure to make them, I would think, to the office and to those implementing it. And to Becky, if you would, Becky, appreciate your offer to work with.
I'm excited about this.
Yeah. All right, if you would, Ryan, take the roll call vote.
Mr. Supervisor.
Yes.
Mr. Treasurer.
No.
Mr. Swam.
Yes.
Mr. Velding.
No.
Mrs. Steele.
Yes.
Mrs. Henry.
Yes.
And Clerk, Mr. Kidd is a yes as well.
Okay, thank you for the thoughtful discussion on that. All right, item number 13, second public comment period. Anyone wish to come and address the board at this time? Yes, sir. Got 3 minutes. Please identify your name and your address.
Hey, my name is Gene Altina. I'm at 1291 Caprice Court, Genesee, Michigan. Ironic that you guys are talking about that. I first wanted to make a point to recognize the new board for all the good things that you're doing. A lot of attention to the details, all the rules, our policies and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate that you guys have been doing that. Making information available to the public. That's I didn't even know that this was going to be on the agenda tonight, so thank you for doing that and putting that through. I've enjoyed watching the videos, the 10+ hours of your meetings so far, so I really appreciate that. And then the length of the meetings. I just want to let you know that I really, really, really like the fact that your meetings are a lot longer because it lets me be here to do what I'm doing right now. I have other commitments. So with that, I was watching the second meeting, which is the 2nd November meeting, and there was an agenda item on there about road resurfacing. And so I paid a little bit of attention to that. This board decided to table it, take it to the utilities board. That meeting was videotaped, so I watched that as well. They brought it back to the board in December, and at that point they presented a new list. And this whole time I was like, what's going on? I can't figure this out. And Dan did a really nice job of presenting what the plan of the township is. It's a 15-year plan. I've lived here for 18 years. I can attest that your road only gets addressed every 15 years. So I waited my turn, and it actually happened. So just before the vote in December, it came to me why this was happening. It was you asked a question that really made it apparent to me. And there's a lot of attention to the policies. I'd like you to maybe take a moment to look at policy 2010-01. I'm going to read section 3. This is our code of ethics or code of conduct and ethics policy. It says a public official shall use personnel, resources, property, and funds under his or her official care and control solely in accordance with the prescribed constitutional, statutory, and regulatory procedures and not for personal gain or benefit. The last item, number 8, says a public official should conduct themselves to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. So the thing that I'm here to contest is there was 564 homes that were on the list that the township had come up with. It's a plan, has a long-term goal of making sure that all our roads are revisited. And I'd like you guys to amend, I'm here to ask that you amend the motion that you had to remove any roads adjacent to any of your property. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Gene. Anyone else wish to address the board at this time? Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please. Thank you.
My name is Delaney Aguilar. I live at 1575 Jackson Street, the very edge of the township. Can I just clarify, did the motion then pass as far as we are moving forward with Zoom meetings?
Yes.
So speaking to transparency, then I would say I'm discouraged that that was not said to be voted on in 2 weeks' time. That those of us in the public would have more time to address the board on our concerns with what that would be in a Zoom meeting. So part of transparency is allowing the public to know what's on the agenda in advance. I know sometimes it comes up as an emergency, but in my opinion, having 2 weeks to think on that and for you as a board to take the time to really investigate all of its implications. I have personally a very high concern with opening that up with a Zoom meeting. In my personal experience of forming bylaws for an organization, there definitely are some legal implications for that. You have concerns of now that you've made it available, how good does the quality have to be? I would encourage you, if you're going to make it available, you need to set the bar very high for that quality. Because you're saying, just like in this room, you have to have good visibility in a meeting. You have to have good audio in a meeting. Those are all important factors. And if you're going to include the public through a Zoom meeting, those remain important. I'm sure all of you have heard some of the stories that have come out in Zoom meetings over the last year. We're talking implications of sexual impropriety in Zoom meetings. So I don't know how this township board is going to address that when a video pops up on a screen and someone is half naked. But that definitely will happen in someone's Zoom meeting. Will it happen in yours? I don't know. I hope not. But you have implications right now. There's lawsuits for sexual harassment. There's all kinds of implications that happened over the last year with Zoom meetings being opened up. So I don't know how the board is going to address those things. We use the term discrimination lately very loosely, telling people that they need to either attend a meeting in person or possibly send a representative. I can tell you, as I sat in my chair tonight, I had people texting me going, "You're at the meeting? Please say this, please say that." It is possible to share your views through a representative at a meeting. Email is excellent. So I will leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the second public comment period and go to item 14, which is discussion and general information among the board.
I was going to say, she made a very good point about that, and it reminded me of county convention, which we just had last week. We had to credential ourselves, so is that legal?
No, because any person, they don't have to be a resident of Georgetown Township to attend, so there should be no additional implications for if somebody was in Kent County and they wanted to attend our...
But they have to identify themselves.
No, that's not, no, that's not the
policy,
law. That is not the law. In fact, it's actually illegal for us to be doing that. A lot of townships and municipalities do that, but that is not the law. You do not have to identify yourself to be able to speak. So...
I believe it's right in our policy manual, but maybe...
It might be in the policy manual, but that can't override.
Be updated. Yeah, that's what, but I thought
It would be unique in that, though. I mean, a lot of municipalities put that on there. They put it right on the agenda that you have to identify yourself and say your name and address for the record and everything else.
Yeah, I know you cannot require ID to attend a meeting.
Correct.
I believe, so.
Okay, any other comments? I have a couple right now. One, I want to recognize Manette Minier. I know you don't want it, Manette, but this is her last week full-time. She will not be leaving us altogether, but more than 25 years, 27 years as our zoning administrator, and just an excellent zoning administrator and excellent worker, works well with people, leads groups well, great leadership skills, great communication skills. I have benefited a great deal from Manette over the years in terms of just teaching and answering questions. And Manette, I know this is something that's been planned. I know that you've got other things in life that you enjoy. And in fact, you've really stayed on longer and will continue to help and work on a part-time basis and advise the township, again, as a means of trying to train Victor and that whole department. And so that itself is a sacrifice when you could be doing other things as well. So I just want to recognize you publicly, Manette, and say thank you for years of professionalism and just dedication to this township. I mean, above and beyond. And you strive with voting and all the different things you have to do. You strive for perfection. And it's why I'm able to say when residents ask, in particular this last election, are we doing things right? Are we, and being able to talk to you and verify those things and have the confidence of being able to say to them, we are doing things right and we're doing things well, because Manette, you are dedicated to that. So I'm glad we won't be saying goodbye to you, but at the same time, this is a transition of sorts, and we just so appreciate everything that you've done for this township. So thank you.
Thank you, Manette.
Thank you, Manette.
And I know I speak for the others in that too. The second thing I would say, and where did I have it here? Michael brought up this last time about a brainstorming session or whatever, goal-setting session. I'm looking forward to it. I just want to say, when that comes about, we talked about April or May. Let some of those things germinate and start thinking on the things that you might want to bring up and discuss at that meeting. I think it could be very helpful. John led us through a SWOT analysis some years ago. Remember, you love that term SWOT. And I don't know if it'll be a SWOT analysis, John, but it will be a discussion, I think, that allows us to just kind of brainstorm in a way that our normal meetings don't permit. So, Michael, I think that's a good suggestion. I look forward to when that comes about. That's all I got.
I do have comments, and I don't know if we were going in any...
Nope, no particular direction. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I'm so sorry, I don't remember what your name is, ma'am.
Delaney.
I really appreciate your comments, and I recognize in general, to have something added to an agenda, it doesn't give, anybody notice. For what it's worth, we didn't know coming into this that was going to be added, and I don't necessarily think that was any fault of Becky. I don't know when it occurred to her to do that or to think through some of the logistics, but I do acknowledge what you're saying about having the advance notice. And I really value having that other side to that, which is kind of, I don't know if you remember that point of discussion of me asking the devil's advocate kind of question because I wanted to flesh out what that looked like. And so to that point, when something is added to the agenda, and I understand it can be hard to follow along, perhaps if we're making changes, but just for future reference so that we do have a better option of hearing from people in the crowd, if you will. So when we have the item number, I think it remained number 8, public comment for action items remaining on the agenda, that would include the newly added items. And so we would have already added those. I would welcome and encourage people, anybody who find themselves in your position that they really want to speak on even an added item, to make that feedback known, because I have a feeling that you have even more logistical or other types of concerns or thoughts that you could have shared on that point that I would have absolutely valued to hear before that. And quite frankly, it's too bad you cut yourself short, because we do, for sure, we're reviewing this before April 1st, but I would welcome you to, whether it's to shoot us an email with more thoughts on that or come to the next meeting, whatever it may be. I would like to know, because, I think this is something I think in general we agreed that we want to do it the right way, whatever it is that we're doing. So, but I just want to let you guys know and emphasize the point that even when an item is added to the agenda, you're still welcome and encouraged to comment on it on the original public comment time. With that being said, I apologize, I have a medical condition. I have to drink a ton of water. I also value, and I am sorry, I don't remember what you said your name was, sir.
Yep.
Okay. But I was trying to take some feverish notes of things, and I don't have that particular policy in front of me, but I do believe it's one that I had pulled up and read, in joining in the board here. It tells me that I need to look at a little bit more homework of, I think you mentioned 564 roads that are on some sort of plan that I didn't honestly realize that was part of our discussions. The information that Rod had sent to us in the spreadsheet didn't have quite that many entries anyway. But it got me looking at things, and I just, in case there was, unless I misunderstood the comment, I at least wanted to address that if there was some misunderstanding about how we would go from doing it one way to another. The plan that was adopted was based on the age of the roads, so that the emphasis being on a general 15-year plan, that we ended up changing it so that it was adopted by age, so that most of the roads on there actually hadn't even been resurfaced since prior to 2000. And so the roads that were being taken off, such as in I call it the Chevy neighborhood, I don't know if there's an appropriate neighborhood name for it, but where there's Lumina and all those other ones, I'm seeing were planned to be on the original one as proposed by the township employees. Those roads, reason why some of those came off were because they had been resurfaced as soon as 2006 and 2007, so they hadn't quite even made it to that 15-year age, whereas some of these other ones. And I value the concept of making sure that we're not inappropriately, self-serving with any of the decisions that we do, but something that we have to keep in mind too is, I guess I can't speak, I haven't been to, I don't think everybody's house here, so I'm not the only one on my street, and I'm certainly not the only one in my neighborhood. So if I were to say, to support a policy change where we would, remove our neighborhoods or our particular roads from any kind of plan to resurface, it's not only impacting me, but it's impacting the dozens or hundreds of other homes that would be potentially impacted by that, and that would be not very fair to all those other residents as well. So not to not consider that, but just something that, I'm not sure what other direct feedback opportunity there might be, and I don't want you to feel like you're being ignored or that the thoughts aren't.
I think his point was a narrow one, which is that you should have said, in the interest of full disclosure, my road is on the list here, but I'm not putting forth this list because of that or whatever the case may be. I think that was the issue. Not that our roads might not be included in things we vote on in future, just in the interest of full disclosure. I think that's what he was encouraging.
Actually, he was actually encouraging or asking us to remove our roads and the roads adjacent to our homes from the plan to resurface. So that was actually beyond just disclosure. So
fair enough.
And I don't hide anything. My address has actually been on the internet in a wide variety of aspects. So where I live is not a secret, but to me, it wasn't making it about me because it was making it about the age of the home. So certainly it's something that the meetings have all been open to the public. Our committee meeting was open to the public. If anybody had any concerns, seeing that my street was going to be one of those resurfaced, that is definitely a time to, and I would welcome and encourage people to comment at that time because, again, I made 6 different spreadsheets and we talked about it in length. Another committee person laughing. We talked about it at length and we talked about it even more so at length in the following township meeting, board meeting here. Point being though that it's not something like that where it's, it's a resurfacing or if it's something like that, some sort of utility thing, it would not be wise to say that our entire neighborhood or our entire streets all have to suffer and that we, even our own individual homes would not be allowed to enjoy in the same thing when I pay the same taxes that everybody else does. I don't think we should have any kind of preference or bump up in line, but in fact the list that I was concerned about was showing that these streets that were all done in the 90s were not being repaved. Hence one of the reasons why it was one of the spreadsheets I put forth that we do it by age.
Okay. But, other comments, either with you yet or moving to Ryan?
I do appreciate whether we work out any details from public. I don't mean to just point at you, ma'am, but I look forward to hopefully hearing more from you and from anybody else that might share some thoughts, or Gary or whatever. But I do like the idea of what you're bringing forth. So if we have to address or change or do something different, I do like the spirit of what we're doing there. So I want to say I really appreciate the thought that you put into trying to figure out how to make that work. So.
Okay, moving from my right toward my left. Anybody?
I have one thing.
Yes, Ryan.
On Saturday, January 16th, as the clerk here, we exercised a FOIA request from a resident to have a deeper dive in a specific precinct. We took about 4 hours right over in the conference room, and I just want to let you guys know this attests to Manette. It was 100% dead on. So you guys did a phenomenal job. Precinct 12 was, this resident said, the anomaly. So we wanted to dive into that one particular one. So, and on the side note, as a clerk, I absolutely loved it because it helped continue to get the breadth of knowledge and continue to see that. So, but I just want to give you props again. You guys did a phenomenal job, and we're good to go.
Thanks for doing that, Ryan. And if you've ever seen Manette when one vote's off, if you've ever seen on election day, one vote's off, she's not happy. Anything otherwise?
My one thought is, Jennison Pinkout is a 501c3 nonprofit in our community that does really important work to take care of people who are newly diagnosed with cancer. It started connected and has remained connected deeply with Jennison High School, and their student body does a tremendous amount of fundraising. But typically, Jennison Pinkout has an event in February that is a basketball game, the varsity girls and then the boys, with a huge ceremony in between. And that their whole February event is going to have to be virtual this year because of COVID, which is tremendously unfortunate. But I just encourage all of you to visit Jennison Pinkout's Facebook page. Consider buying a T-shirt. That's their biggest fundraiser of the year. But this is a really amazing nonprofit that reaches out to every single newly diagnosed cancer person in Jennison and asks, how can we help and support you? They help make payments that people can't afford because of undergoing treatment. They help put gifts under Christmas trees. They help provide transportation to and from appointments. It's really just a very remarkable group of women that are working hard to make a positive difference in our community. So their event is virtual, but it is February 10. But they're currently selling T-shirts, and if you need any more information on that, I would love to share with you just my connection to JP Hess. I don't have any invested interest in this, but I've just seen the really good work they do and the number of lives they touch. So consider supporting them in some way.
I can second that. That is a very powerful event. That's why I was bummed to see that it was obviously going virtual, but me and my family attend every year, and it's phenomenal.
It's so important. So.
Thanks, Becky. Anything, Gary?
Just one thing for the Finance Committee. Several years ago, I haven't seen it lately, but we used to do a pie chart of how taxes are spent in the township. One of the questions I get from a lot of businessmen that I run into, they're like, man, you know, my business sucked this year and property taxes are really high. And I always look at them and go, you realize the township taxes are 2.25 mils. The bulk of your property taxes are going to the schools. And I feel like I'm always defending our taxes because our township taxes really aren't that high. It's the public school taxes that are high. So it'd be kind of nice to have a pie chart that kind of shows, hey, this is where your money's going. If you're in the Hudsonville district, this is where your money goes. This is in Genesis, where your money goes, because I don't think people realize that. They think property taxes, the township gets all that money.
Yeah.
Really don't.
Yeah.
So,
you know, two summers ago, and Dan, you can think back.
On the
I did that in one of my newsletters that I sent out.
I don't remember where I see it. That's why I bring it up.
Yeah, no, what were you going to say, Dan?
But
what were you going to say, Dan? I'm sorry.
You're fine. She's going to bring it up.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary.
no, I just think
I agree with you because it comes up again and again.
People to see because there's a lot of guys right now that are struggling.
Yeah.
And going, well, can you cut my? What are you guys going to do about property? It's like, guys, here's the deal. The public schools have got bond issues on that. You have to talk to them. If you don't want them to pay their bond, then they have to cut the taxes. Nothing the township we can do.
Yeah.
We collect them.
Yeah, that's good.
If I had my way, the public schools would collect their own taxes. We wouldn't collect them.
Sure.
Because it's all about them. They put the millage together. They borrow the money. You collect it. I mean, that's just my opinion, but I look at things differently than most people do.
When I speak publicly on behalf of the township, I bring that up as often as I can, especially if, the mayors of Hudsonville and Granville or anyone else are there, because I like to compare. Saying, look at it, look at the millage, So we try to get the word out there that it's very modest.
Right.
Very modest.
Yeah, I agree. It's just it looks terrible when they get this huge bill, and I'm like, hey, you vote for that. I don't. So that's all I got.
Thank you. While she's looking
I'll just quickly a strong supporter of, and I agree with you. And it was Gary really pushed that we collect the taxes separately. And I think we missed the deadline by like 3 years. It would have had to be another board that would have had to try to separate who would collect for the taxes. I think it was back in 2009, 2010.
I think we missed it a lot longer.
Okay. All right. Well, I seem to remember that conversation, but I just want to kind of acknowledge a strong supporter of the township has been Tom Kenbrink, superintendent of Jennison Schools, and he's going to be retiring. And most people don't realize that I think their school district is 17 square miles. It is small. And they were Class A for a long time. And I believe Granville is 56 square miles, and Hudsonville is just huge. You only have to go a couple blocks from the high school, and you're already in Hudsonville School District. He has been so innovative that he has helped them to just grow, and one of the most gifted men I've ever met. And so he's going to be, I've said for years, when he goes, they've got to have someone that can walk on water to place him, because the lack of land really affects them. They've got an incredible partnership with Hudsonville, that Hudsonville helps them a great deal, but anyway, good man.
Great man. Are they having a public ceremony for his retirement, or anything they could do during COVID?
I think it's going to be in July.
His retirement is as of, I think, July 1st.
Okay.
And I agree with you, and I love that you brought that up. Such a tremendous loss for Denison Public Schools, but a well-deserved retirement for Mr. Tenbrink. So.
He did a very powerful public presentation program explaining the Jenison School District and what they've accomplished. And I went to talk to Alan at WCET, and I said, this quality is so good, could we possibly do that for the township and explain what's been done? And I said, Jim would be perfect for it. But evidently, WCET didn't do it. I guess it was Jenison's own audio people, which is incredible that they were able to pull that off. I'd like to see us do some things like that to get out the word about our township.
All right. Tom's a great leader. Good comment. Mike, you want to close this out?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you have mentioned it before at meetings where people ask that. They come in here and they're like, why do you have our taxes so high? Stop spending my money.
Yeah.
And you always tell them, is like, the winter one, the little one, that's the township and the county. The summer one, that's all schools. So you have made that clear to them before, which is good, isn't it?
Is that on the website?
It is. Underneath assessing taxes. I don't know if it changed because of our millage rate went down, but it shows us as 8%. Township's 8%. The county's 15%, and education is 77%. Oh, yeah, right there.
And I guess my other point would be, and not that I'm questioning authenticating those who make public comments, but Opens Meeting Act 267 of 1976, 15.263, Section 3, Paragraph 1, a public body may establish reasonable rules and regulations in order to minimize the possibility of disrupting the meeting. And it's also under the Michigan Municipal Code, and I think the reason is you just don't want people putting bad stuff on a Zoom call or coming to a meeting and putting on performances and that kind of thing. So
I think it's
just
that combined with what courts have said about what those reasonable restrictions could be. So.
Well, good meeting. I appreciate everybody's input tonight, and meeting's adjourned. If there's a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All right, all in favor? Aye.